For some reason, a countdown clock suddenly appeared on this young man's right forearm. It showed 5 hours, 58 minutes, and 12 seconds. Contron had no idea what would happen when the time on his arm ran out. Normally, when encountering something this strange, people would turn to their families for help, but Contron couldn't do that, because his parents were divorced, and his father was a piece of trash addicted to gambling and chasing women. So, before the time on his arm ran out, the first thing Contron did was to ride his bike straight to the Long Dong residential complex. Looking up, he saw his familiar apartment still lit up and noisy. He knew immediately his father was gambling with a bunch of lowlifes again. Since he was there, Contron decisively pulled out his phone and called the police. "Hello, officer? I'd like to report some people gathering to gamble at room 201, building 17, Long Dong Complex." The person on the other end took the information and said the police would send someone immediately. Afterward, it started to rain, and Contron just biked home in the downpour. But in that rain-soaked state, he actually felt quite at peace because he had done something useful. Once he changed his clothes, the countdown only had 52 minutes and 30 seconds left. Contron tidied up his things and left a suicide note. The rain kept pouring. That night, his father was arrested. His mother was happy with her new family, and he gripped a dagger, quietly waiting for death to come and take him away. Finally, the countdown hit 0. And indeed, a phenomenon more bizarre than anything could be had happened to Contron. Space seemed to freeze, then cracked into countless fragments, and Contron felt like he and those countless fragments were falling freely into a bottomless void. After who knows how long, he panicked and woke up in a strange room. The things he had prepared were gone, and on his right arm, another countdown appeared. This time it was 48 hours, which meant 2 days. Contron checked his body and found no injuries. It was definitely his own body. Fingerprints and birthmarks couldn't be faked. But the clothes on his body were completely foreign. His first guess was whether he had transmigrated or not. If that were the case, the destination of the countdown on his arm wasn't death, but transmigrating to another dimension. And after transmigrating, the new countdown timer indicated the time to return to Earth. Thinking of this, Contron instinctively breathed a sigh of relief, even though in the real world, there wasn't necessarily anyone missing him. But he still wanted to go back, after that. Contron started to observe everything in the room. It was just a small room, but it was designed with incredibly expensive materials. Contron was wondering where this place could be to be built with such luxurious materials, when suddenly the big door in the room swung open, followed by a loudspeaker announcement. "It is exactly 7 in the morning. Breakfast time. All prisoners are to line up one by one to head to the canteen." Contron was speechless. It turns out the number sequence 101. 101 on his shirt chest was a prisoner ID number. To transmigrate for the first time and end up in prison like this. I really don't know if that's lucky or unlucky. He stepped out of his small room and discovered that the scene outside was truly bizarre. It was just like the futuristic world he often saw in science fiction movies. Then, Contron bumped into another prisoner. When this person looked up, he saw the other's eyes were terrifying, as if they were made of machinery. This made Contron instinctively stare at the man for a long time, until a voice rang out from the side. "Hey, you new guy over there, don't eat too much this morning, or you'll look ugly when you puke later." While threatening him, the owner of that voice used his iron arm to shove Contron hard against the wall. Old inmates bullying new ones in prison wasn't surprising, but what caught Contron's attention more was the other man's metal arm. Could it be that this is an era of mechanical bodies, where every human has some parts replaced by machines? Heard there were 12 new guys last night. Today's going to be fun. This kid doesn't have a single mechanical part on him. I bet he doesn't have any connections on the outside either. The group of prisoners talked to each other and walked away with a smug look. Contron didn't understand the situation here yet, so he could only stay silent. At first, when he heard the term new guy, he thought they knew he was a transmigrator. But thinking about it carefully, that didn't seem to be it. They probably just meant he was new to the prison, and they had no clue about his true identity as a transmigrator. Although the fun they just mentioned is likely a heap of trouble for him. Just as he thought of this, Contron heard screaming from the hallway downstairs. "Ah, what kind of hellish place is this? I want to go home. I don't want to stay in this place another second. I am Huang Taitian. My father is the chairman of Vin Loi Group in Lactan. All of you, stay away from me. The owner of that voice was running wildly in the hallway, so panicked that he kept tripping and falling, but naturally the others just sneered and didn't offer to help. Contran recognized him. That was a junior, 1 year below him, at Lokthan Foreign Language School. It seems he wasn't the only one who had transmigrated here. Contran mused that if people were close to each other before crossing over, they might end up close after arriving, but that was just a guess. He had no proof to be certain. Just then, due to the noise from Huang Tiexian, many flying robots descended from the ceiling, playing a looped warning. Stop immediately. This is another warning. Stop immediately. All the prisoners stood frozen, waiting for the next order as the robots approached Huang Tiexian to subdue him. Contran watched the entire scene in silence. In a foreign land like this, meeting someone you know provides a sense of security. But whether it's truly safe depends on the person. They might not actually be someone who can help you. On the contrary, they might become a burden. This newcomer is interesting. A real idiot, huh? The veteran prisoners nearby sneered at Huang Tiexian. I heard he got 7 years for tax evasion. He didn't cry when he was brought in last night, but now he's bawling. In this era, anyone who dares to mess with the tax bureau has to be a total idiot, right? They laughed, then put an arm around Contran and chuckled. Hey, newbie, are you ready? They turned toward Contran, threatening him with a mocking tone. Contran remained silent, knowing things wouldn't be easy from here on out. Even though he was surrounded by veteran prisoners, he kept his focus on the scene unfolding on the ground floor. The prisoners from the lower levels were already down having breakfast. However, Contran noticed one table that everyone was deliberately avoiding. At that table sat an older man deep in thought over a game of Chinese chess. Beside him was a beautiful white cat with blue eyes, and 2 tall, imposing young men stood guard on either side. Though the prison was filled with constant, boisterous swearing and chaos, no one dared to even step near that man's spot. It was like an untouchable zone. At first, Contran thought he was a guard, but looking closer, even though his clothes were different, there was still a serial number embroidered on his chest. I was wearing the number 000001. If that was the case, he must be the most special prisoner of them all. Contran kept watching the man instinctively. Suddenly, the young man with white hair standing beside him looked up and gave him a sinister smile. At that moment, the notification urging prisoners to line up for the mess hall rang out again. Contran blended into the crowd and started moving to the first floor. While moving, he was able to get a rough idea of the prison's layout. There were 7 floors total. On the ceiling, there were 18 drones, including 10 surveillance cameras and 3 armed security robots. Including himself, there were 3,012 people. The reason he could grasp this information so quickly was due to his extraordinary memory. He could remember everything after just one glance. And just then, a miserable scream rang out right next to him, cutting off Contran's thoughts. Ah, let me go, please have mercy. He looked down and saw a few veteran prisoners bullying a young man who looked like another newcomer. Drag him into the cell. Don't make a scene in the plaza. Be careful, the robot guards will intervene. Relax! I'm not an idiot like Yangji, the bullying veterans said to each other. Contran, who was observing them closely, was suddenly nudged by a man with strange red eyes. Stop looking around, you'll be next soon enough. This blunt threat didn't make Contran feel afraid at all. Seeing his calm expression, the man was visibly annoyed, but Contran didn't even care. He just grabbed his food and went to find a seat. Even though he acted like he didn't know anything, the plotting in the veteran's eyes was far too obvious. Contran felt that if he didn't do something, he'd probably end up crippled on his very first day. So, just as they were about to attack, Contran took off running. His reflexes weren't bad at all. Even while escaping his pursuers, he managed to keep his tray of food from spilling. Quick, get him before the guards notice! They shouted, but when they saw the direction Contran was running, no one dared to move a muscle anymore, because he was running straight toward the man with the serial number 000001. The group initially gritted their teeth, but then they started mocking him. That brat thinks he's so smart trying to rely on that guy. He's overthinking it. Heh, just wait and enjoy the show. Why worry so much? Contran, tray in hand, ran like the wind toward the table that no one dared to approach. But before he could even get close to the man, he was stopped by the white-haired man beside him. Newbie, I know what you're thinking, but we aren't going to help you. His path forward was blocked. Behind him, the veterans were waiting to tear him apart. They mocked Contron for not knowing his place, but he remained remarkably calm. After taking a deep breath, he said, "Pawn to the front one. I can break this endgame." Contron's words were about the chessboard in front of the man. The prisoners were so terrified they held their breath, as normally, no one even dared to look the man in the eye, let alone talk to him. Yet, the great man sitting there actually moved the piece. After following Contron's advice, he made another move and replied, "Bishop 5, retreat 7. Continue." The man's reply to Contron was even more shocking to everyone, and Contron knew he had made the right move. The chess position that the middle-aged man had been mulling over was known as the West seizing the king. The red and black pieces looked evenly matched, but in truth, black was only one move away from victory, while the red side was completely worn out. Just one moment of carelessness would lead to a loss, according to the Chinese chess manual he had read. As the red side, you only needed to hold for a draw to solve this endgame. But holding for a draw wasn't in Contron's vocabulary. "Cannon to the middle, shift 2, move 3, he called out. The other side replied, "Rook forward 4. Contron kept pressing the attack. "Elephant moves back 9. The two kept trading moves back and forth. Every time that prominent figure spoke, the prisoners broke into a cold sweat. They went back and forth until finally, Contron successfully checkmated the man. Securing victory as the very last second, the man's face turned ashen. He looked up, silently sizing Contron up, thinking to himself that such a young kid didn't hesitate at all when sacrificing pieces to shift the board. Then he spoke aloud. "Interesting. There aren't many people left in this era who know how to play. Same time tomorrow." As soon as he said that, the entire room was shocked. The prisoners hadn't expected that the prominent man could actually lose. They also didn't expect Contron to know how to play, and certainly didn't expect the man to invite him back. A same-time tomorrow invitation was the strongest protection one could have in this prison, in this era. If people aren't using chips to get a quick thrill, they're using their consciousness to log into virtual websites. Who even knows about old-school pastimes like Chinese chess anymore? The white-haired young man who had blocked Contron earlier now patted him on the shoulder, acting very familiar, unable to help but praise him. "You're good, rookie. I'm Lam Tutu. That big guy over there is Deep Van. See you tomorrow." Contron intently watched the three of them walk away. During all of this, a surveillance camera behind him had been locked onto him. Just as Contron faintly sensed someone watching him and turned around, another prisoner grabbed his leg. He looked miserable and disheveled, hair messy, face covered in tears. "Please help me. We're both new here." "Please, I'm begging you. I'll listen to everything you say from now on." Contron responded with an icy cold stare, clearly having no intention of playing the hero. Right after that, two veteran prisoners rushed over, grabbed the young man by his hair, and dragged him back to continue the hazing. It wasn't that Contron didn't want to help, but in the current situation, staying out of other people's business was the only way to protect himself. Out of the 12 new inmates, 9 had already been dragged off by the old-timers, and among these 12 people, only Contron and that broken-down teenager, Huang Taitian, were from Earth. It seemed those who transmigrated here weren't many, even if there were thousands or tens of thousands compared to the total population. It was probably just a tiny fraction. Contron didn't know why he had ended up a prisoner here, but he didn't feel depressed at all. On the contrary, he was somewhat looking forward to it. On Earth, he was essentially redundant. His father always found him a nuisance. His mother had a new family, and relatives rarely visited. Contron had already spent 2 New Year's Eves all by himself. If it weren't for the countdown on his arm, he probably would have just relied on his special memory to get into a good university in the future, and then lived far away, leaving his home behind forever. But Contron never understood what the point of a life like that was. However, this world was different. It was a new life. Even as a prisoner to him, it felt like an escape, a clean break from the past that made him start to look forward to the future, thinking that he might have a completely different life in this world. Just as Contron was lost in thought, a young man suddenly approached him from behind. "Finally, you're here." Just as handsome as the rumors said. He leaned into Contron's face, observing him closely, then sighed. Contron, startled by the close contact with another man, immediately backed away 8 steps. The guy just flashed a harmless smile, then reached out to shake his hand. The stranger introduced himself as Lo Kwang Nia. 3 months ago, he had been brought in here by Kanan Gon. "You can just call me Tu Lo," Contran looked at Lo Kuang-yi's hand hanging in the air but made no move to shake it, only giving a polite, superficial greeting. He didn't even know who Kan-ngan was, but judging by the tone of Lo Kuang-yi, he definitely knew Contran's identity in this world. Moreover, he even used honorifics, proving that his status was higher. In just the last hour, Lo Kuang-yi had looked at him 21 times, and that was just counting what Contran had noticed. The people beside him were likely his subordinates. After he got in here, according to him, Contran being thrown into this prison seemed to be part of a plan, although he felt his own speculations were quite logical. In the end, they were all just speculations. But all of that is just speculation, nothing more. Contran was afraid that talking too much would blow his cover, so for now, he had to keep Luang Guangyi at a distance. "I don't need your help for the time being. If something comes up, I can handle it myself," he replied coldly, but his words only left Luang Guangyi flustered. No, that won't do. I must serve you properly. Everyone's status here is equal. No one is better than anyone else. You don't need to use such heavy-handed words like serve. Stop it, just feel free to order me around. Think of me as your dog. I'll do anything you say. Even something like licking your feet or whatever else. What if my feet stink, then what? Contran asked. Then I'll lick them until the smell is gone. Luang Guangyi's response left Contran completely speechless. He had no idea where this guy had dropped from, being this mind-bogglingly loyal. But the way the guy was acting made him feel like he shouldn't rely on someone of unknown origin. Contran was too lazy to keep talking to him, but as it turned out, Luang Guangyi's mouth, Guangyi just wouldn't stop. This morning I was wondering why you didn't come find me sooner. Who would have thought you'd use a newcomer's identity to get close to Li Shudong? That's truly brilliant. Inside this prison section 18, if we have Li Shudong's help, our plan will go much smoother. Contran broke into a cold sweat. Li Shudong, whom Luang Guangyi mentioned, must be that older man playing Chinese chess earlier. But wait, what on earth was this plan he kept rambling about? I was dying to know but didn't dare ask, terrified of exposing the fact that he was an outsider, a stranger who had transmigrated here from another world. However, you must be careful with Li Shudong. Being around someone like him is like asking a tiger for its hide. If we don't play this right, we'll end up on the back foot. Luang Guangyi continued to babble on. Contran's expression soured further. What was with all this heavy, grand talk? He really just wanted to keep his own skin intact. Then he heard Luang Guangyi continue, "Forgive me, I spoke out of turn. So what are your instructions this time?" Contran was a little caught off guard by the question. His brain kicked into overdrive, desperate to find an answer that wouldn't make the other guy suspicious. After a few seconds of thought, Contran said, "The Lama teacher has come from the south." When he heard this, a bunch of question marks seemed to pop up over Luang Guangyi's head. He had absolutely no idea what Contran was talking about. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the prison, Li Shudong sat leisurely next to Lin Xiaoxiao and Ye Wan. The three of them, as usual, sat in silence for a long while. Then, Lin Xiaoxiao brought up a topic to break the ice. "Boss, that teenager isn't helping the other newbies." Li Shudong glanced at him, seemingly not surprised by this information at all. When that person plays chess, he's very decisive. Not only that, he's willing to sacrifice everything to find a way to win. So he's the same way with other people. Chess is just chess. If you told me to sacrifice a piece to win, I'd do it too. Lin Xiaoxiao didn't seem to grasp the deeper meaning behind Li Shudong's words, then followed up. "So, boss, do you plan on playing chess with him again tomorrow?" "Of course I am. If I don't play with him, should I play with two blockheads like you?" After saying that, he turned to Ye Wan beside him and brought up an unrelated matter. "By the way, the Chen group has caught that guy, Q Hu-chan. The interrogation process is finished and they'll likely hand him over to be locked up here in Section 18 in a few days. When that time comes, you go and have a chat with him." Ye Wan looked at Q Hu-chan's photo on the tablet screen and nodded. "I've dealt with him once before. Even though he isn't easy to get along with, at least he's someone you can talk to." Ye Wan had always acted with great caution, so Li Shudong had no worries about leaving the task to him. He then turned back to Lin Xiaoxiao. He asked what he thought about the teenager who had been crying and screaming in the cafeteria that morning. "I've been watching him for a long time, but I keep feeling like something isn't quite right. They were talking about Huang Tiantian. A quick glance might lead everyone to think he had broken down and was spouting nonsense. But Lin Xiaoxiao had noticed that when mentioning Lo City and the Yongli group, Huang Tiantian's tone was extremely certain, as if those things actually existed. Meanwhile, he had also investigated Huang Tiantian's identity on the outside. He was just an idle employee. He dropped out of high school a long time ago and was arrested for trading fake robotic limbs with the CAC Ho organization in City 18. He was even involved in the illegal seizure of prosthetic limbs. There was no concrete evidence, so he was finally thrown into prison for tax evasion. Lin Xiaoxiao had been able to dig up his entire past, except for the two elements of Luo City and the Yongli group, which he couldn't find a single trace of. Besides Huang Tiantian, Lin Xiaoxiao knew Li Shudong had also been paying attention to Contran, but since their chess match had only just ended, he hadn't had the chance to investigate that boy's identity yet. Coincidentally, as they were talking about this, Contran walked past them. He headed straight for the bookshelf, but in this era, the shelves didn't hold regular books. They were all tablets. Contran took down a tablet. Lam Tiu, seeing this, walked over and initiated a conversation. "First time in prison, right? To use the reader, you first need to register an account with your prisoner ID. Once you log in, it will show your recent reading history and bookmarks. You can set your reading preferences and font size. The hardware even has built-in AI. Just say its name, and it will help you find the content you want to read." Seeing the other person so enthusiastically explaining things to him, Contran seized the chance to ask, "Where can I check the latest news?" "Don't even dream about it," Lam Tiu replied immediately. "Your reader account doesn't have internet access." "Neither do I, but our boss does." Contran silently cast a glance toward Lai Thuk Dong. It seemed his status in this prison was indeed far above the others. "Thanks," Contran replied coolly to Lam Tiu. He then took the tablet, logged into his account, and sat down at a table. "Take your time," Lam Tiu said lazily, though as he walked past and saw Contran reading, he stopped dead in his tracks, because the speed at which the boy was scrolling was faster than a dog running through a field. After observing him for a few seconds, Lam Tiu returned to Li Thuk Dong. He whispered to him, complaining that Contran wasn't reading seriously at all, just scrolling aimlessly as if looking for an excuse to stay near Li Thuk Dong. Surprisingly, he showed no reaction to this. I even told Lam Tiu not to be a busybody and not to underestimate the survival instinct of others, adding that if it were him, he might be even more desperate than the kid. Learn to put yourself in someone else's shoes. 3 hours later, Lai Thuk Dong's group finally stood up. As they passed by, they still saw Contran scrolling through the screen at lightning speed. Lai Thuk Dong had intended to walk straight past, but seeing the boy's fingers flying across the screen, he finally stopped and asked casually, "What was the content on the third line of the previous page?" Unexpectedly, Contran replied instantly, "When order descends into chaos, one cannot help but use chaos to maintain order and salvage the law." Even while answering Lai Thuk Dong, Contran's fingers kept scrolling and his eyes kept reading. Lam Tiu was immediately stunned, because just moments ago, he was the one insisting that Contran wasn't reading seriously and was just putting on a show to find an excuse to be near Lai Thuk Dong. Then, Lam Tiu thought Contran must have just made a wild guess, because who could possibly have such superhuman abilities? Jip Van, who followed Lai Thuk Dong, knew what to do next. He walked over and borrowed the tablet from Contran to verify. After a careful check, he had to report to his boss that what Contran had just said was not even a single word wrong. While his eyes were off the tablet, Contran had subconsciously noticed Lai Thuk Dong's white cat, while the man himself couldn't help but let out a big smile. This kid is getting more and more interesting. "Let's go, it's time to eat." The three of them left first. Lam Tiu kept looking back at Contran, seemingly unable to believe that terrifying memory capacity of his. In reality, what happened just now was intentional on Contran's part. Even though showing off his talent was risky, it was the best path, because to survive in a prison like a steel beast, the best way is to prove that you are useful to the strongest person here. And based on the situation just now, it seems he had successfully caught Lai Thuk Dong's attention. During lunch that day, just as Lai Thuk Dong had eaten half his meal, Lam Tiu returned. He took off his shoes and sat cross-legged on the chair opposite him. With a very smug expression, seeing this look, Lai Thuk Dong guessed immediately that he had gained some information about Contran. "Oh, I got plenty, all right." This guy, who knows how to play chess, is completely clean on the outside. I couldn't investigate a single unusual clue. But that just makes me even more interested. Lam Tiu laughed loudly and began rambling about what he had just found. According to his findings, Contran in this world is a high school student in city number 18. Both parents passed away in a traffic accident, and he inherited a fairly large fortune. I had no prior criminal record and no remaining relatives. The files show he was sentenced for stealing a liquid crystal phone, which was enough to land him a heavy sentence and throw him in here. But here, Lithuk Dong and everyone else knew that prison number 18 is for heavy sentence prisoners who usually have a long rap sheet, or were caught by the tax authorities and locked up. A petty thief like Contran should not be in this place at all. Furthermore, he has only been in prison for 6 months. This is likely the shortest sentence in the history of prison number 18. Feeling that this was very unusual, Lam Tiu Tiu had found people on the outside to ask carefully. This case of Contran's is still being debated hotly out there. They say he claimed to have bought the liquid crystal phone normally, and the money had already been paid. But for some unknown reason, it didn't reach the seller's account. The surveillance camera also suddenly broke, leaving no way to prove Contran's innocence. So once the officer, if you provide a retracted testimony or produce a video showing you've already paid the price, King Chin can walk out of here this instant. Boss, you've seen plenty of these tricks before. Most people who intentionally get themselves locked up to handle business end up using this same old routine. But the kicker is that he's a king, too. As she said this, Lin Xiaoxiao's tone turned dead serious. Then again, in this era, in this space-time, Kang is a very special surname here. There are 5 major corporations that basically control the entire economic lifeblood, and one of them is the Qing family. It's an incredibly rare name. If you were to run into someone named King on the street, you'd immediately wonder, is this guy from the Qing Corporation? Besides, the Li Shutong group all knew that this corporation had already planted someone named Lu Guangyi in the prison earlier. That kind of thing isn't hard to dig up. Back then, Lin Xiaoxiao couldn't figure out why they'd bother sending such a small fry to prison. What on earth were they planning? But then, once inside, Lu Guangyi started recruiting people left and right. Relying on his sophisticated mechanical limbs, he took down the established prison powerhouses one by one, gathering a small army of subordinates in just 1 short month. He created a 3-way standoff with the other 2 factions in the prison. At the time, Lin Xiaoxiao found it baffling. Could the Qing family have sent Lu Guangyi to prison, simply to have him take over prison number 18? The Qing family clearly knows the boss is here. If they truly intended for Lu Guangyi to be the big boss of this prison, they'd be overthinking it. Yawan added, right, that's why I kept thinking, have they lost their minds? To send a lackey like that to prison number 18? It wasn't until today that I finally understood. Lu Guangyi was just a scout for this kid, King Chin. No matter what he's planning, he's the real ace. Lu Guangyi is just his errand boy. Lin Xiaoxiao concluded. But even so, he still couldn't guess King Chin's true objective for appearing in prison number 18. Or perhaps, are you not a direct descendant of the Qing Corporation? Li Shutong, who had been listening quietly until now, finally set down his bowl of soup. He then spoke leisurely. The Qing family is likely about to choose their next shadow. His words were incredibly calm, yet they made both Ye Wan and Lin Xiaoxiao turn pale. The next shadow? But a massive financial group like that? They need a mask for the outside and a lining for the inside, Li Shutong explained. The head of the Qing family is the external face, while the shadow I just mentioned is the inner lining. The shadow specializes in doing the dirty work. They hold immense power, ruling over the Qing family's underworld. Aside from the family head, no one can control them. However, the selection process for each generation of the shadow is brutal, no different from raising venomous insects. It looks like the Qing family is trying to stir things up and won't let anyone have peace. Li Shutong sighed, but Lin Xiaoxiao was still confused. Boss, even if this kid King Chin really is a candidate for the shadow position, why go to such lengths to scrub his background clean? Clean as if he has absolutely no connection to the Qing family? Unless, within this kid's world, there is an even bigger secret. Hearing him say that, Li Shutong replied, I suddenly feel like he resembles someone, and I'm even more interested in this kid now. You go and test his personality. Boss, you're looking to recruit him? But he's a Qing family man, Lin Xiaoxiao protested. I'm just telling you to probe him, not to do anything else. Besides, if we could snatch someone out of the Qing family's hands, wouldn't that be even more interesting? But I feel like he and we aren't cut from the same cloth, Lin Xiaoxiao grumbled. In an organization, you need all kinds, Li Shutong replied calmly. Tigers to hold the mountains, hawks for the long-range view, wolves for the fight, leopards for the agility, or dogs for loyalty. They all have their own roles. Just as Li Shutong said this, a piercing scream echoed from far across the cafeteria. A prisoner, seemingly a newcomer, had been shocked by a robot for not standing in the right spot. According to the prison hierarchy, he'd only been taught the position once this morning. "How am I supposed to remember that?" the man shrieked, but the robot just continued its function. How could it ever argue with him? Nearby, the veteran prisoners were already far too used to this. Naturally, they had no intention of helping. On the contrary, they found it thrilling whenever a newcomer got shocked for forgetting their spot. Afterwards, they glanced back at Qingchen and exclaimed, "How did he manage to hold his position during the chaos this morning? Is this guy even human?" Qingchen knew those whispers were likely about him, but he couldn't be bothered to care and just focused on the cue. But before it was his turn to get food, Lin Xiaoxiao suddenly charged over. He threw an arm around Qingchen's shoulder and dragged him away. "From now on, you don't need to queue with them anymore. You're someone who plays chess with the boss. Do you really need to wait in line?" He acted so casually. Yet the prison robots didn't react at all. Though Qingchen looked calm on the surface, he was secretly marveling. Just what exactly? Is the identity of these three? Just how special could someone be to basically run the whole show inside this prison? Lam Tiu dragged Contran all the way to the front of the food line and tapped the leader on the shoulder. The guy turned around with a vicious look, but the moment he saw who it was, seeing it was Lam Tiu, he tucked his tail between his legs and obediently stepped aside to let them through. The other prisoners, who had been planning to mess with Contran earlier that morning, watched in stunned silence. Playing chess with Li Shudun is one thing, but now you're even eating with him? Don't be so surprised. Anyone who can hold their own in a game of chess with the boss is bound to get some special treatment. Lam Tiu explained and then added, "Come on, Contran, dig in, even if the food in Prison 18 isn't exactly gourmet." Li Shutong sat across from them, remaining completely silent the entire time. So Contran just ate in silence until he finished his meal. At 8:40 in the evening, he returned to his cell to wash up. Honestly, he felt a bit confused about the morning. Li Shutung had just played a simple game of chess with him, so why would his attitude change so drastically, even if it was because of his performance in the library? Getting the special privilege of eating together seemed like too much. Contran suspected this might be connected to his identity in this world, but he still had no clue what that identity actually was. After washing up, Contran lay down on his bed, the steady, rhythmic dripping of water from the sink lulling him to sleep. But it didn't seem to be a deep sleep, because in the middle of the night, Contran suddenly opened his eyes. He found himself in a strange, eerie room. The flickering light from a fireplace in front of him revealed only parts of the surroundings. The floor was a complete mess. Torn books, shredded clothes, shattered picture frames all scattered across the dirty ground. Not far away, there was a teddy bear that had been pinned to the floor by a blood-stained knife. Contran felt a chill run down his spine just looking at it. There was even a message written in blood on the wall. He knew he should be in his cell right now. So what was this room? A nightmare? Contran stood up and began to carefully observe the room. Then suddenly, he heard a knock on the door. "Who's there?" he asked cautiously. The person outside identified himself. "Officer, badge number 27,149. You're the one who called the police, right? Please open the door." Contran felt like the voice was very familiar, but he couldn't recall who it belonged to, which was truly bizarre. Given his gift for memory, he never forgot anything. After hesitating for a moment, Contran decided to open the door. The man's face was hidden beneath the brim of a wide police hat, making it hard to see his features, yet the silhouette was clearly familiar. Lightning flashed outside, making the room look even more ominous and terrifying. The officer patted him on the shoulder a few times and said, "The reporter, stay exactly where you are and lock the door." Then, he walked up the blood-stained stairs. Contran obediently locked the door as instructed, but then a knock sounded at the door again. "Who's there?" he asked, his voice sounding more tense than before. "Police. Badge number 27,149. You're the one who called the police, right? Please open the door." Contran was stunned. Cold sweat began to bead on his forehead. Wait, wasn't Officer 27,149 the one who just went upstairs? So who was outside the door? Who was the real cop? As if reading Contran's thoughts, the voice outside rang out again. This time it sounded far more eerie and grew increasingly urgent. It made him even more nervous. Why don't you guess? Go ahead, guess. Is the one inside real? Or is the one outside real? Or maybe none of this is real. Which one would you choose? Contran stayed silent, his nerves pulled tight like a guitar string. Then he made a bold decision. He lunged toward the teddy bear, aiming to pull out the knife pinned to its chest to defend himself. But just as his hand was about to touch the blade, it was as if something knocked it back. Some force didn't want Contran to touch the knife. I wanted to trap him here forever. Just as that thought crossed his mind, the eerie voice outside pounded in his ears again. Why are you grabbing the knife? Shouldn't you open the door for the police first? Contran looked at his arm. The countdown clock was still running, his heart was beating, and his blood was pumping. Having been alone his whole life, he had nowhere left to run. With that, Contran let out a loud shout. Get lost! Trying to drive away the voice that wouldn't stop tormenting him. He reached out, pushing through all the resistance, and finally yanked the knife out. Open the door? Wait until I deal with all this mess, then I'll open it. Once he pulled the knife out, all the obstacles vanished. And that was when it all came back to him. The owner of that voice was none other than Lam Tutu, and he was clearly currently inside a nightmare trap created by him. Lam Tutu was also very surprised. He had followed Li Shutong's request to test Contran, which is why he deliberately created a nightmare trap, a demon's hell, to challenge his resilience and courage. He never expected Contran to be far calmer than he had imagined. Not only was he unafraid, but he was also able to act ruthlessly while facing danger. This made Lam Tutu doubt that the opponent was really just a 17-year-old kid. He was even more baffled as to how Contran could pull the knife out of the bear, even though he had clearly tried to stop him. This was his nightmare, so the rules of the game should have been in his favor, yet Contran still managed to break free from his control. Lam Tutu, get down here, Contran said, his face cold. Only then did Lam Tutu step down from the stairs, scratching his head and sighing. That's strange. You're in a nightmare, yet you can still stay this clear-headed. The boss's eye for people is really something else. You're really something special. Why did you do this? I don't recall ever offending you, Contran said coldly. Lam Tutu sighed and explained that he was just following Li Shudong's orders to figure out what kind of person Contran really was. And this proves how much he values you, Contran. It's just that from now on, the nightmare won't have any effect on you anymore. Is this your special ability? Contran asked further. That's right. It's just like your ability to remember everything after seeing it once. I have my own abilities too. There's nothing to hide about that. Contran frowned. In this world, both mechanics and mysticism actually coexist? So the fact that Li Shudong's group holds such a special position in this prison must be because of these special abilities, right? Seeing Contran lost in thought, Lam Tutu asked bluntly, Are you with the Khan Corporation? Is it because you suspected my identity that you gave me this special treatment? Contran didn't rush to answer. Instead, he posed a question of his own. Since he honestly didn't know the answer either, he listened as Lam Tutu continued, Why do you think the robot guards don't mess with us? Naturally, it's because our boss is very special. Don't try to change the subject, just come clean about who you are. Lam Tutu added that last night, he found security footage of Contran talking to Lo Kuang Ngia, whose identity was already crystal clear. Since Lo Kuang Ngia was so desperate to get close to Contran, Lam Tutu was certain Contran worked for the Khan Corporation. Hearing this, Contran felt his reasoning sounded quite logical. I suppose that makes sense. He sat down on a tattered leather chair and countered, If you're already so sure I'm from the Khan Corporation, then why would you even want to help me? At this point, Contran had basically figured out the other man's angle. If Li Shudong already knew his identity and still wanted to associate with him, it meant he needed something from him. So there was no need to be so tense. And sure enough, after that question, Lam Tutu revealed a bit of the truth. Our organization doesn't care about your background. As long as we share the same path, anyone can join. Of course, you still need to be qualified. Contran replied, You're trying to recruit me? And what role do you play in your organization? I never said you were qualified yet, by the way. Honestly, I don't think you and us are on the same page. But the boss said, an organization needs all kinds of people, and everyone has their own strengths. Lam Tutu stood up and walked toward Contran, his tone turning menacing. Suddenly, he leaned in, trying to use his overwhelming presence to force Contron to spill his secrets. The Khan Corporation went through so much trouble to get Lo Kuang-gia in here, and then they let you in. What on earth are you people trying to do? Or are you looking for something? You'd better ask Lo Kuang-gia about that, Contron replied calmly, though in reality, he didn't have a clue. Today, looking at Lam Tutu's reaction, Contron was genuinely wondering if he should go ask Lo Kuang-gia for the full story. His calm, unblinking demeanor made Lam Tutu incredibly annoyed. Knowing he wouldn't get anything more out of him today, he reached out and touched the back of Contron's neck. A light touch, but enough to knock him out. Before losing consciousness, he heard him say, "If you don't want to talk, that's fine. Sooner or later, I'll find out anyway. For now, get some sleep. You still have to play chess with the boss tomorrow morning." Contron woke up again. The sound of dripping water reminded him he was back in his cell. The countdown on his wrist showed 20 hours, 59 minutes, and 20 seconds. Less than a day left before the countdown ended. Early the next morning, before breakfast, Lam Tutu reported yesterday's events to Li Shudong with vivid expressions. "Boss, last night I tried using the twin ghost trap to probe him. And guess what? He pulled out a knife and attacked someone directly. His murderous intent is really intense. I told you not to overdo it. Normal people easily collapse when caught in the twin ghost trap. Don't worry, I didn't overdo it. Besides, you won't believe this. That kid actually broke free from the nightmare's control," Lam Tutu said. Li Shudong's expression turned contemplative, as he knew very well that normal people couldn't escape the nightmare's control. Anyone who could was truly special. It could be due to an incredibly strong will. Meanwhile, Lam Tutu, who had been bested by Contron the night before, was deeply troubled and kept urging his boss to reconsider. He felt Contron's murderous aura was too strong and didn't fit with their path. Li Shudong heard this and set down his chess piece, his face darkening. "Because of this cause, we have lost so many comrades. Even 3 of us are locked up in here. So Tutu, you need to understand that we cannot treat the darkness with gentleness. We must use fire." A while later, Contron woke up from an uneasy sleep. To his surprise, he heard a very familiar song echoing through the prison. "Tong Biet, farewell." Contron was stunned. How is this song here? Could this place be the future of Earth? After changing his clothes, Contron went downstairs to have breakfast. This morning was different from yesterday. All the old prisoners were actively avoiding him out of fear. Of course, no crazy person dared to bully Contron anymore. When he walked near Lam Tutu, he saw the dark circles under Contron's eyes, but he still couldn't resist being a tease. "Good morning. Couldn't sleep last night, huh?" Contron was fuming. "Do you even have to ask if I could sleep or not? Isn't it obvious? You should know that better than anyone, right?" That nightmare had trapped him for 2 whole hours. He couldn't get any good rest, even after waking up. Seeing Contron so annoyed, Lam Tutu felt incredibly smug, giggling incessantly. Normally, after escaping a nightmare, one's spirit is drained and exhausted. But you're really something special. Not only did you escape Tutu's nightmare, but you're still standing here today. Not bad. As soon as Lai Thukdong spoke, Lam Tutu automatically gave up his seat to Contron. He sat down across from him and asked bluntly what it would take to become someone with abilities like Lam Tutu's. Lai Thukdong chuckled. This was the first time Contron had ever seen him laugh like that. "You're very straightforward, aren't you? But you cannot follow his path. However, you are perfectly suited to follow mine." These words caused Lam Tutu and Diep Van to change color instantly. Even Contron was stunned. He knew Lai Thukdong wasn't an ordinary person, but I had no idea how much influence he truly had on this world. And if he asked directly, he risked exposing his identity as a transmigrator. So Contron decided to ask a safer question. "How can I follow your path?" "Don't misunderstand," Lai Thukdong replied immediately. "It was already too late for Diep Van and Lam Tutu when I met them. That's why they couldn't take my path. As for you, although I really admire you right now, it's still not enough." Contron nodded, signaling he understood, then looked down at the Chinese chessboard. He asked if Lai Thukdong wanted to play today. The result was a shake of the head. For Lai Thukdong, the most important part of chess was playing against a worthy opponent. If he won while the opponent's mental state wasn't good, there was no fun in it. Meanwhile, the dark circles under Contron's eyes were proof that his mental state was anything but stable. "I think you should go back and rest for a day," Lai Thukdong said. The old prisoners nearby, seeing this, thought Contron had fallen out of favor and immediately pricked up their ears, eager for some drama. But Contron had no intention of wasting the whole day in his room. He wanted to solve this endgame, so he immediately made some incredibly bold moves. His final checkmate made Lai Thukdong ponder for a long time. He realized that Contron had used the red chariot to lure his black general into the trap, corresponding to that pawn forward one move, creating a fatal trap. This was a brilliant strategy that an ordinary person would rarely think of. I thought your mind wasn't clear, and even if I won, it would have been taking advantage of the situation. I didn't expect that I was just overthinking things. Lai Thukdong laughed heartily and conceded that he had lost this game. The prisoners surrounding them, waiting for a show, were stunned once again when they saw Contron win against Lai Thukdong for 2 consecutive days. Lo Kuang-Gia was even more exaggeratedly excited. It didn't matter what you won. Just beating Li Thukdong once in a lifetime was already worth it. So, he suddenly had an idea that he wanted to learn Chinese chess too. And of course, Lo Kuang-Gia's lackeys just thought he was talking nonsense. Contron was intending to leave. Then he remembered the matter from the morning. Wait, can I ask you something? Consider it a reward for your win just now. Sure, go ahead. Was that you playing the flute earlier? Contron asked immediately. This question made Diep Van and Lam Tutu fall over, thinking Contron would use this opportunity to ask something profound. To think he only asked about that song. That's right, I was the one playing. First time hearing it? That is a song written by the founder of our organization. The lyrics were also written by him. Contron heard this and could only offer an awkward smile. He guessed that the founder of Lai Thukdong's organization was from Earth and furthermore a shameless person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stolen someone else's song and claimed it as his own. And Lai Thukdong's organization must have been founded a long time ago. He wondered when that predecessor had transmigrated. It was beautiful. Could you give me a complete version? Contron continued to suggest. I could, but the lyrics for this song aren't quite complete. After all, it's been a long time and some things have been lost. Then Lai Thukdong played a complete version of Song of Farewell for Contron. Only the last line, separation has its time, was different from the original version on Earth. Lai Thukdong also said that was a line added by later generations. He heard it wasn't like that before, so overall it was still missing something. Contron then said, then why not change that line to friends parting scattered like fallen leaves? Because this was the original lyric from Earth, and Contron was just reciting it. Perhaps when that predecessor brought it to this world, over many years, it had simply been lost. Yet, upon hearing that, Lai Thukdong immediately wore an expression as if he had just had an epiphany. Then he laughed and thanked him. That line is wonderful. It's as if that was how the original was meant to be. I heard the founder of that organization was very talented in poetry. Each piece is a classic passed down to future generations, but they were lost in the previous era. Only 2 remain now. So what's the name of the other one? Contron asked. Li Thudong replied that only the name of that piece remains. The seniors had searched through all the artifacts but could never find the lyrics. Contron was left speechless again. It seems it wasn't just a coincidence. The founder of that organization really was a time traveler. Then the canon that Li Thudong just mentioned must be Johann Pachelbel's canon in D major. If you were to give the lyrics to Li Thudong, considering how much he worships that senior, could you trade them for a path to transcendence? Contron hesitated, then decided to think it over more carefully. After the meal, he went to the reading area. Lo Kuang-Gia also came, but sat quite far away from him. Putting on a show of being strangers, Contron couldn't take it anymore and said directly, "You don't need to be so cautious. Li Thudong already knows about our relationship. Besides, he doesn't care anymore. Now I need to rest. Go do your own thing and stop bothering me." Contron just finished speaking, and lo, Kuang-Gia, already opening his mouth, began operating at full capacity. "Come on, boss, I'm just gonna say a few things. I won't be a bother to you, boss. I've thought about it for a long time and still don't know what to call you, so boss it is, for convenience. I figure you've already heard Kangan mention me. I've suffered since I was little. My dad sold my kidney for money and had it replaced with something else." Then Lo Kuang-Gia started complaining about his hardships with a speech spanning nearly 2,000 words. He talked without even taking a breath, despite saying he would only say a few things. Contron felt dizzy listening to it. "All right, what is it you actually want to say?" Contron cut him off. Then he saw Lo Kuang-gia put on a very desperate look, begging him to teach him how to play Chinese chess. Contron wondered why he wanted to learn. To his surprise, this shallow guy replied immediately, "Because it's cool. Boss, even someone like Li Thudong is a loser in your hands. Isn't that cool enough?" Contron sighed, then seized the opportunity to probe, "Is winning a game or two really that big of a deal? Of course, no one else can even stand up to him. So if you beat him at chess, you've got serious bragging rights. I didn't expect that after you got in here, you'd be able to befriend Li Thudong and get along so well. Given his status in this 18th prison, he might know where the thing we need is. Plus, if you get his inheritance, you're a shoo-in to win the race for the shadow position." Lo Kuang-gia really is easy to pump for information. A casual question, and he blurted out so much data. Contran immediately confirmed a few things. First, Li Thudong's combat power is very high. He couldn't take him in a fight. Second, his purpose for being here is to find some object. Third, he is competing for a position called the Shadow in his family. To be able to extract more information in the future, Contron decided he would teach Lo Kuang-gia how to play chess. But when Contron finally gained some understanding of this world, it was time for the countdown clock to return to 0. That night, Contron used the sharp end of a toothbrush to carve a few words onto the prison floor. Then, using his right hand, he pinched his left arm to create a deep wound. After that, he gripped the toothbrush tightly, sat on the bed, and quietly waited for that moment. These past 2 days felt like a dream. He got to know a few people and understood a little about this strange world. Contron didn't know if he would ever be able to return here. Well, let fate decide. When the countdown hit 0, just like last time, the space seemed to freeze, then shattered again. Contron returned to his small room, in the exact same posture as when he left, with the same dagger still in his hand. At this moment, a new 48-hour countdown appeared on his arm, and the wound he had just made on his left arm was still there. All of this proved that what happened over the last 2 days was not a dream. The first thing Contron did was grab his phone. Surprisingly, it still displayed the date he had traveled. He had spent 2 full days in that strange world, yet only 1 second had passed on Earth. Perhaps when he returns next time, only another second will have passed there too. That must be the rule for us time travelers, Contron thought. That's a good thing. I doesn't have to explain to anyone why he keeps disappearing. Just then, Contron received a call from the Vuongthan police station, reporting that his father had been detained for organizing illegal gambling. Therefore, they asked him to come over because according to the administrative penalty code, he had to be detained and fined. Contron, as the guardian, needed to go and complete the procedures. "I'm sorry, I won't be coming. You guys should just punish him strictly." According to the administrative penalty code, if serious, he could be detained for 10 to 15 days and fined between 500 to 3,000 yuan. "Please just go ahead and give him the maximum penalty, thank you," Contron replied coldly, then added, "I'm not his son. I'm the one who reported the crime. I'm just a good-hearted citizen, that's all." After saying that, he hung up without a second's hesitation. Contran put his phone down, flopped onto the bed, and let out a long sigh. There were no messages from his mother, and this left Contron feeling strangely hollow. He felt restless and wanted to return to that other world as quickly as possible. The next morning, the first thing he did was copy down the musical notes for canon. But if he were to give this to Lai Thuk-dong, he would need to explain where he got them from. That seemed a bit too risky. So, Contron decided that before handing them over, he had to figure out if the guy was even worth the trouble. Later, Contron went to class as usual. As soon as he arrived, he ran into Nam Kanthan and asked him right away, "Did Teacher Do say anything about me skipping class yesterday?" It was supposed to be a simple question, but for some reason, Nam Kanthan suddenly jumped, looking completely panicked. "Huh? Say what?" he stammered, stuttering over his words. "It's nothing. Why are you so nervous?" "Nervous? Me? No way," Nam Kanthan replied, but his expression gave him away completely. Seeing that the other guy didn't want to talk, Contran didn't push him. He just sat down and focused on flipping through his books. Nam Kanthan sat next to him. The two were silent for a long while until finally he couldn't take it anymore and turned to ask, "Contran, what would you do if you encountered something really strange? How would you handle it?" "Strange? Like what specifically?" Contran asked calmly, though his heart was actually racing. Could Nam Kanthan have traveled to another world too? "I'm not sure myself. It's just really weird," he replied vaguely. Well then, call the police, Contran suggested. Nam Kanthan's face lit up instantly. Oh yeah! Why didn't I think of that? Hey, Contran, do you have someone working at the police station? I sure do. My old man just got arrested last night for running a gambling ring, he replied with a stone-cold expression, leaving Nam Kanthan speechless. He didn't say anything else. Contran also fell into deep thought, wondering if the strange thing Nam Kanthan was talking about was actually time travel. While he was busy thinking about this, Contran heard one of his classmates shout out that American basketball superstar Taylor had just held a press conference, claiming he had traveled to a civilized world filled with robots. Upon hearing this, Contran couldn't maintain his indifferent facade anymore. He hadn't expected that even people abroad were time-traveling and possessed countdown timers. Nam Can then immediately opened his phone to watch the live press conference. In the video, Taylor had a robotic arm that helped him sink 10 long-distance basketball shots with perfect accuracy. In the clip, Taylor explained that last night he suddenly discovered a countdown timer on his arm, and when the time hit 0, that was when he traveled to that bizarre world of robot civilization. It was another Earth, with a sun and a moon, but it seemed to be a parallel universe because the level of civilization was completely different from current Earth. When Taylor traveled there, he already possessed that mechanical arm. It was as if he had replaced someone else's identity in that world, becoming a completely new person. He didn't know the reason, but the power of this mechanical arm was beyond his imagination. It was incredibly flexible and precise. It could help him sink 10 shots in a row, or even 100, and when he returned to reality, Taylor had brought that arm back with him. He also said that he held the press conference not to show off. The other world wasn't beautiful at all, but extremely dangerous. The purpose of Taylor's press conference was to get ahead of the curve in case he might be secretly taken away for experiments. I want to state that I refuse to be a research subject. If one day I go missing, please understand that I have been kidnapped. Contran felt his ears ringing. Taylor was a public figure, so it was impossible for him to hide having an extra mechanical part, even if he retired. He knew very well that technology in that other world was far superior to current Earth, which is why he was afraid of being taken away as a human lab rat, leading him to come up with this desperate solution. But Contran didn't think it was a good plan. He guessed that Taylor was simply too terrified, which is why he made such a hasty decision. I didn't know where Taylor had traveled to either. He only knew for sure that he had brought the robotic arm from that world back to Earth. Meanwhile, when he left, he held a dagger, and when he returned, he held a toothbrush, but he couldn't take them or bring them back. It seemed the way to bring items back was to have them integrated into his body, or hidden within himself. That day, it wasn't just Taylor's press conference on the hot search, but also many articles about people claiming they had traveled to another world, a place not only with robot civilization, but also superhumans who surpassed normal people, and some who had even awakened special abilities. Nam Kanthan was reading until he looked completely dazed. His hand kept scrolling through the news while he muttered, "Superhumans, robot civilization. If I traveled there, would I have a chance to become a superhuman too?" Meanwhile, the classmates are all in a frenzy, buzzing about how many people have transmigrated. They're speculating if anyone here at our school has done the same. Taking this opportunity, Contran turned to Nam Kanthan and asked him about that strange matter. "Is this the strange thing you were talking about earlier?" Nam Kanthan shook his head and replied, I can't tell you right now, but rest assured if I get some kind of opportunity, I definitely won't forget my bro." Yeah, don't forget me when you're rich," Contran said, having pretty much gotten his answer already. What a fool. A moment ago he was scared out of his wits, and now he's acting like he's king of the world. Well, as long as he's happy, sometimes it's better to be a bit oblivious. After saying that, Nam Kanthan buried his head in the trending news again before turning to Contran. He started wondering, hypothetically speaking, if I could transmigrate there, could I bring some high-tech gear back here and sell it? I don't know, maybe not. I've seen them bring back a robotic arm already. Don't worry, when I strike it rich, I'll definitely treat you to a meal. Seeing how clueless Nam Kanthan was, Contran, out of respect for him being his desk mate, warned him. There are quite a few people who have transmigrated online right now, and all of them are in danger. That's why Contran urged Nam Kanthan to be careful instead of just obsessing over getting rich. He fell silent for a few seconds. Contran thought Nam Kanthan had finally come to his senses, Who would have thought he was actually just deep in thought about where he should take Contron to eat once he got the money? It's like talking to a brick wall. Seeing his words had no effect, he didn't bother anymore. In class, some students were impatient to know the rules of transmigration. They had never tried it, so naturally, they didn't know how terrifying that other world really was. That was why everyone wanted to try transmigrating at least once. As for Contron, after scrolling through a series of posts and videos from transmigrators, he managed to summarize 2 points. First, the previous countdown was 6 hours, and the countdown to return to Earth was 48 hours, which means the time spent in the robot world and the time to return to Earth are the same. That was the first group of transmigrators. After that, someone who knew about this came out and said they had never transmigrated. But at exactly midnight today, a countdown appeared again. This must be the second group of transmigrators. The next point is that the transmigrators are all young. Their ages are currently between 10 and 35. Not long after this news broke, people online started posing as transmigrators to chase clout. Nam Kanthan swiped through a few videos and saw a fat guy with a super fake-looking robotic arm. Contron guessed that Nam Kanthan wasn't in the first group, but in the group that received the clock. The countdown hit midnight. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so terrified when he saw Taylor's press conference. So the strange matter Nam Kanthan mentioned earlier was that a countdown clock had appeared on his wrist. After thinking it over seriously, Contron came up with 2 possibilities. 1, the number of transmigrators stays the same. If someone loses their life on the other side, a new person takes their place. Another possibility is that the number of transmigrators is constantly increasing and will continue to grow in the future. It would be great if someone in our school had transmigrated. Then we could ask them about the world over there. After watching a bunch of videos, Nam Kanthan started sighing. This reminded Contron of one thing: the son of the chairman of Vinloy Group, Huang Titian. He is a 10th grade student, and he also transmigrated. Thinking of this, Contron immediately stood up to look for Huang Titian. In the hallway, the students were all discussing the same topic. He felt that life was truly unpredictable. Not long ago, Contron was just like them. A normal student always trying hard to study, aiming to get into a top university, but after just one event, the path he is on now is no longer that normal. Contron went to the 10th grade classroom and randomly asked a student if Huang Taitian had come in today. I even made up an excuse that he was there to return something, but the other person shook their head. This was completely within his expectations. After all, on the very first day of transmigration, Huang Taitian had been beaten to a pulp. With such severe mental trauma, there's a chance he might have even gone insane. After that, Contron asked for his home address, but the classmate only knew he lived at the Ngan Yuan Central Garden. The exact address was unclear. Contron thanked him and then returned to his class. Throughout the lessons that day, he couldn't focus on the lectures at all, and the other students were exactly the same. The math teacher, Dien Hai Long, knew perfectly well what the students were fixated on, so he felt helpless, and that math lesson ended earlier than usual. Just as Dien Hai Long left the room, Nam Kanthan held his phone in front of Contron and said, "Ha Tiu Tiu just posted a new walkthrough." "Who is Ha Tiu Tiu?" Contron asked back. Nam Kanthan gave him a look of disdain, acting like he was ignorant, then explained that Ha Tiu Tiu was a pro gamer. A few hours ago, he posted a video of a new game walkthrough, but no one had ever heard of the game he was talking about. Yet Ha Tiu Tiu was still sitting there seriously recording the walkthrough. A few hours ago, he just posted a video about playing a new game, but no one had ever heard of the game he mentioned. Yet, Ha Tiu Tiu was still sitting there seriously trying to beat it. After news about the transmigration phenomenon broke, the internet community finally realized that the game guide Ha Tiu Tiu posted earlier was somehow linked to that other world. Hearing this, Contron picked up his phone to check. At the beginning of the video, there was a disclaimer from Ha Tiu Tiu. "Because this game is quite unique, I can't record actual gameplay footage." Ha Tiu Tiu then referred to their current world as the outer world, and the game world as the inner world. He had only just entered the inner world himself, so his information was still quite limited. But Contron guessed that he too was a transmigrator, and that game guide was just a metaphor for the robotic world they encountered after crossing over. Still, he kept watching the video intently. In it, Ha Tiu Tiu explained the 3 professional paths. The first was using high tech to augment oneself. by going to mechanical clinics to buy expensive cybernetic parts, though he hadn't found any yet. Since he hadn't earned enough money, he hadn't tried this method yet. And in that world, the fastest way to make money is to sell your own organs, though he didn't encourage anyone to try it. The second path is joining the Forbidden Taboo Association, which supposedly offers genetic modification to become a new human. But Ha-Tiu-Tiu hadn't found any. NPC contact information for that organization was hard to come by because it was so mysterious. The final path was a professional route at prison number 18, where a man named Lai Thuk Dong held the key. That was the path with the highest potential. Contron was speechless. Ha-Tiu-Tiu had literally turned the transmigration experience into a real-life game. Is he delusional? I even turned Lai Thuk Dong into an NPC. So the next time he transmigrated, would some idiots actually follow this game guide and run to prison number 18 just to go find him? However, through Ha-Tiu-Tiu's video, Contron confirmed that Lai Thuk Dong was very famous in the other world. Famous enough that Ha-Tiu-Tiu knew who he was after being there for only 48 hours. What a useless piece of information. You need money for cybernetic parts. You can't find info on the Forbidden Taboo Association. And how on earth are you supposed to break into prison number 18? Nam Kanthan sighed beside him. The transmigration topic had been the talk of the school for quite a while, until some new news appeared in the afternoon. It felt like a dark cloud was dampening everyone's enthusiasm. The news was about a young male student, confirmed to be a transmigrator, who had been assassinated. The killer even posted a video of the crime, including a shot of himself cutting off the student's cybernetic legs right afterward. Many people who had revealed their status as transmigrators fell into a panic, especially those who had brought back cybernetic parts from the other world, fearing they would be the next target. After the media reported the news, some speculated that by taking a transmigrator's life, you could take their place and transmigrate yourself. These reports made the students realize that transmigration wasn't a free lunch falling from the sky, but a total tragedy. Nam Kanthan's expression grew darker as he watched. So Contran reminded him again, "You've seen the news now, right? I'm just saying, assuming you ever transmigrate there, remember to keep it a secret. Don't go running your mouth. It's so hard to find a way to change your fate. Why, did it suddenly turn into a horror game like this?" Nam Kanthan said dejectedly, "Tell me, why are we so poor? Probably because while other people's dads are out there risking their lives to make money, your dad is just chilling while making money." Contran replied with his trademark deadpan tone. "What about your dad then?" Nam Kanthan asked. "My dad? He's risking his life gambling." Contran's blunt, emotionless answer left Nam Kanthan frozen. I was even stunned when he heard that Contran was the one who reported his own father to the police to force him to reflect on his actions. Nam Kanthan broke into a cold sweat. Then he suddenly laughed out loud. Heh, maybe you should report my dad too." This time it was Contran's turn to be speechless. They were sitting in class, but neither cared about what the teacher was saying regarding the second page of the chart. Meanwhile, Contran's mind was drowning in a sea of thoughts. Because of the information overload, his face tightened. He was having trouble processing so many things at once. Outside, yellow leaves kept falling from the sky. Holding the profound knowledge in his hands, Contran couldn't help but ponder. Today, those who transmigrated seemed to be distributed according to some plan, all concentrated in over 10 cities. Which means, after a moment, he clutched the leaves with a determined look. Those transmigrators were all gathering in the same place. As soon as the bell rang for the break, Contran bolted out of the classroom like a whirlwind. 5:50 p.m., break time. It made Kanthan judge him again. That kid is ditching again. Contran didn't want to waste a single moment, so he jumped over the wall with a nonchalant expression. As soon as he got home, he changed into new clothes. Contran walked while staring intently at the phone in his hand, as if trying to capture every bit of information. He looked at the location pin on the screen and found it quite interesting. He wanted to go take a look and see what happened after Huang Taitian returned. What did he encounter in that inner world? Even though he didn't know the specific building or the specific row, he had to go. Before long, he reached the bridge, his body exhausted, but he knew he couldn't afford to skip training. Only with a strong body and a sharp mind could he ever hope to face this dangerous, unpredictable world. As he ran, Contran couldn't help but let his mind wander. Perhaps it was because of his shift in perspective, but fragmented memories began to unlock in his mind. As these pieces fell into place, the chains of his upbringing and the life he had known began to break. Before long, the night had completely swallowed the city. Contran stared up at the entrance ahead, impressed. No wonder it was a luxury complex. You needed a keycard just to get in. He wondered if the back door was just as secure. Inside a house, he saw a group of people partying and messing around. Seeing that scene, he subconsciously muttered, "Home." It felt like a home out of a machine, but then, right before his eyes, he saw Tae-Tien being dragged away by two men while screaming, "Monster! Monster!" Watching this, a name instinctively flashed through Contran's mind. This was Hoang Tae-Tien. Even though he was shaken, he could only watch their silhouettes disappear, unaware that a dark figure in a car was watching him too. That watcher didn't act immediately. They just stayed silent, waiting. They left just like that, without a word. Contran stood to the side, burning with anxiety. Who were those people, and why were they taking Hoang Tae-Tien away? Could it be because of his status as a transmigrator? This definitely wasn't a coincidence. Realizing he couldn't get the answers he needed, he hurriedly left the area. But after only a few steps, Contran felt a sharp, piercing gaze fixed on him. Something was wrong. He was being followed. He remembered the situation, and realized it had started the moment he turned around. That guy had been tailing him for 5 blocks. Turns out that person had been on guard the whole time. Even so, Contran kept walking calmly, pulling out his phone to call home. "Hello? Yeah, I'll be home a bit late tonight." Right then, Contran stood perfectly still to confirm something. As the man behind him finally passed by and disappeared into the crowd, his heart, which had been pounding in his throat, finally began to settle when the light turned red. With only 20 seconds left, Contran stood there, seemingly distracted, but he could feel a murderous aura from the person standing next to him. He glanced over, his mind racing. "I saw this guy outside the dormitory gate earlier. This isn't a coincidence. I'm being followed." Unable to do anything, he just stared blankly into the void ahead. What kind of mysterious organization is this? To be trained to this level? Are they really that interested in transmigrators? Contran strolled across the street, lost in thought. Maybe I'm not the first group to cross over. Maybe I'm the second or even the third. Otherwise, even if someone knew about transmigrators today, it wouldn't warrant such a swift reaction. These people were prepared beforehand. These people were prepared from the very start. But the guy from before was still sticking to him like a shadow. A street vendor called out, "Sugar-coated hawthorns!" He couldn't afford to make any mistakes. "Jack? Jack? Hello, little eye?" "Ah." Finally, the green light appeared. Contran immediately seized the moment and stopped dead in his tracks. This is it. Against all odds, he chose to turn back toward the area he had just left. The man behind him saw this and hurriedly reported into his earpiece, "The target hasn't crossed the street yet." He turned back. "How much longer until you get there?" But unfortunately, the voice in the earpiece crackled back. "No good. I'm still 2 minutes away from the observation point." Just then, the man realized something was off. Wait. He looked around the quiet night and could only exclaim, "I lost him!" But with his professional training, he immediately gave chase. He couldn't help but sneer. "How embarrassing. 2 of us tailing one guy and we still lost him? You guess? Does he know we're following him or not?" The voice over the earpiece spoke up again. "I'm guessing he already knows." Lovien, the expert on the other end, was running at full speed while speaking. "That kid only looks like he's 17 or 18. If he really figured out we were following him, he's a complete monster. He might still be in high school." As their voices echoed in his earpiece, Contran was already casually making his escape. "Besides, did you notice? His actions looked so natural. When he stopped to make that phone call, I couldn't even tell if he had spotted us," he said over the earpiece to the other guy. "If he hadn't, I would have taken him down right then and there." But the other guy felt confused. "I'm curious. Why did you suddenly want to follow him? We have plenty of other missions today. There's no need to waste time on a random pedestrian." Lovien, while still searching, didn't forget to report. "It wasn't a random change of heart. It's just that when the captain was escorting Target 009, I noticed him avoiding the captain's gaze." Meanwhile, Contran had reached another location. Exhausted from running, he had no choice but to sit down for a moment. "I'll sit here for 30 minutes and see if I've completely shaken them off. Then I'll head home." As Contran checked the situation on his phone, he couldn't help but wonder, the streamer is on his way. Could he have been captured by that mysterious organization too? Just how many of these mysterious organizations are there in the country? Right then, a police car sped past him. On the other side of town, a man screamed, "What? What happened? Something's gone wrong, hasn't it?" The woman sitting next to them chimed in, asking if that was the building where the husband constantly beat his wife. Before this, she had even been hospitalized from his abuse, yet he never changed his ways. Every time she tried to divorce him, he'd just beat her again. I even threatened to kill her whole family if she dared to leave him. The old man asked, So what about today? Did he beat her again? But why does it look like something's up with the husband? The old woman nodded and said, You're right about that. In front of Tron, an ambulance was loading someone up, while people around were whispering about how he had tried to step in, only to realize the wife was the one who had beaten the husband this time. Yeah, the husband came home drunk late tonight and tried to hit her, and well, you see the result. I'm sure you've all heard the news about many people crossing over to that other world, right? Looks like his wife is one of those crossovers, too. The murmurs grew louder as people looked at the man on the stretcher. At first, she just took the beating and didn't fight back, probably thinking, this hurts like hell. But maybe she finally snapped because she actually broke his arm. Looking into the house, Tran saw a little girl trembling in a corner, while people whispered, Poor kid, what a shame for her. She's only a few years old, why does she have to suffer like this? As he approached, this girl looked up, her face tear-stained. Choking back sobs, she called out, Big brother? Tran thought to himself, it had been 2 years already. He had lost count of how many times he'd seen the mother and daughter crying in each other's arms downstairs. He remembered that whenever the parents fought, this little girl, Lai Dongvan, would always run away. She'd come over to his place. Tran continued his train of thought. He remembered the first time he made fried rice for her. He noticed that the husband would beat her the moment he saw her talking to another man. Now that his arm is broken, I suppose he had it coming. Lai Dongvan sobbed as she explained, Big brother, just now, Mommy told me to go wait at your place for a while, but I kept knocking and you weren't home. Tran leaned down, patted her head, and comforted her. It's okay, little one, have you eaten yet? If not, how about I make some fried rice for you? I haven't eaten either. Suddenly he sensed something. Tran quickly locked the door. Seeing this, Lai Dongvan asked, Big brother, what's wrong? He turned to her and said, It's nothing. Just stay quiet for a second, there's a police car outside. Tran pulled the curtain back slightly to keep a careful watch. Footsteps approached, and 2 men appeared. Tran quickly recognized them as the same group from the SUV he'd seen at Central Park. They got here fast. Lovian suddenly sensed something. He looked toward the window where Tran and Lai Dongvan were hiding. Trin Vian Dong asked, What is it? Lovian replied, Nothing, just looking around. I just have this feeling like someone's watching me. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Let's go, upstairs, let's get the job done. Tran watched them, thinking, if Lai Dongvan's mother gets caught, we're in trouble. The dad is hospitalized, and if the mom gets snatched by that mysterious organization, what will happen to the little girl later? No, I have to play it by ear. Lai Dongvan had been watching him the whole time, confused about what was happening, silently trailing behind him. He worriedly thought, there's no movement. If they were really going to take her, wouldn't there at least be some resistance or a struggle? Tran saw the 2 men get back into their car. He wondered, what's going on? Are they just leaving empty-handed? Don't they want to capture the crossovers after all? There was a noise at the door. Tran and Lai Dongvan stood by it. Jiang Tuet awkwardly said, Sorry to bother you again. Her robotic fingers nervously toyed with her hair. Tran said, It's no trouble at all. I was just about to make dinner for Li Dongvan. I really like her. Hearing this, Jiang Tuet thanked him. She turned to Lai Dongvan and said, Come on, Tuvan, let's go home. Listen to me, don't bother them anymore. The girl refused, saying, But I'm still hungry. Everything in our house was smashed by those 2. There's nothing to eat at home, Mommy. Hearing that, her mother looked sad. Tuvan, Tran politely offered. I heard you 2 haven't eaten yet. Why don't you have dinner with me? Jiang Tuet was surprised by the invitation. She thought, even though this boy helped us before, he never proactively invited anyone over. He always seemed annoyed by us. Why today? Tran explained, I'm also very curious about the crossover phenomenon, so I wanted to ask you a few things. What should I call you? Lai Dongvan's mother introduced herself as Jiang Tuet. Tran said, Oh, I just wanted to ask you, Ms. Gang Tuet, a few things about that world inside. Can you tell me about it? Lai Dongvan grabbed her mother's hand and pulled her in. Jang Tuet smiled and said, In that case, I'll have to trouble you then. There's nothing I can't talk about. You can ask me any time, he replied. Kantran looked at her, wondering how someone with such a weak personality could have survived in that dangerous world. The dining table was spread with delicious food. Lai Dongvan's eyes lit up. She picked up a piece, put it in her mother's bowl, and said, Mom, eat up. Kantran observed the mother and daughter caring for each other. He spoke up, Ma'am, I saw the police come to handle the incident. What did they say? Jang Tuet recounted that the neighbors had also helped vouch for her. They had intended to take her to the station, but considering she was a woman and it was clearly self-defense, they let her go. If anything comes up, they'll just call me in, she added. He continued, I noticed there were 2 other people afterward. What did they come for? Jang Tuet honestly replied that she wasn't sure what they wanted. They just had her fill out a form, took a photo of her ID card, and left. Kantran asked, Just like that? She continued, They said they might come to find me later and told me not to leave Lakthan just yet, but they didn't say why. Oh, and I saw them hand some documents to the police. Then, the police explained the situation to the 2 of them. Kantran ate his meal while analyzing, so it's not like they just arrest every transmigrator they see, plus they have official documentation. And they aren't as crazy as I imagined. He asked again, All right, Ms. Jang Tuet, what kind of status did you have in that world? Looking at her arms, Jang Tuet explained that she ran a machine repair shop on 18th Street in the city, which was essentially helping people install mechanical limbs. But after I transmigrated there, I didn't understand anything. When people came to get mechanical limbs installed, I could only say I was out of stock. These mechanical arms were already there when I arrived. They stay with me even when I come back. Kantran probed further. I saw prison number 18 mentioned in a transmigrator's post. Where is that place? She said, It borders 18th Street in the city. That prison is quite famous. It seems to be a high-security facility for holding serious criminals, the highest level of confinement in the Federation. Kantran was surprised. He asked, The Federation's penal system? How do you know that, Ms. Jang Tuet? She replied, Oh, this? I didn't know anything when I first transmigrated 2 days ago. Lai Dongvan asked curiously, Mom, what's your repair shop called? She answered, It's called Jang Tuet's Mechanical Limb Repair Shop. Why do you ask? The little girl put a mouthful of rice in and replied, Just curious. Jang Tuet wondered, Kantran, why are you so curious about that world? He replied, I also want to transmigrate there to see what it's like. I really admire those who have transmigrated. Jang Tuet's face hardened. She said seriously, That world is extremely dangerous. Except for people from the Lai, Tran, Khan, Than Nai, and Lokdao corporations, everyone else lives in deep water and burning fire. It's not even as good as living in this world. Kantran said nothing and continued eating. After finishing, Jang Tuet offered to help clean up. As they were cleaning together, Kantran asked, Do you have any plans for the future? Jang Tuet's robotic hand was wiping the table. She answered his question, saying she wanted to take Tu Van to stay with her maternal grandparents in Trin Than for a few days. We're going tomorrow, Jang Tuet added, and then I'll return to divorce her father. Hearing this, Kantran suggested, In that case, buy your tickets in advance. There are so many people going to Trin Than every day, buying tickets isn't easy. She agreed. You're right. Jang Tuet was on her phone, worriedly asking, Why can't I buy a ticket? Seeing this, Kantran realized, So it's like that. The verbal warning was just a warning. In reality, they've already restricted my movements. Kantran glanced at Jang Tuet, who was silent in the distance, thinking to himself that even after failing to buy a ticket, Jang Tuet tried a few more times. But the result was the same. She still couldn't buy one. A trace of sadness and deep thought crossed his eyes. That mysterious organization has eyes and ears everywhere. I don't want to be trapped in this city. So regardless of their motives, I absolutely cannot reveal my identity yet. The sound of the TV echoed in the living room. The brave little dog is not afraid of difficulties. Lai Dongvan turned to look at him and said in a natural tone, Big brother, you've never looked directly at my mom before today. The little girl winked and whispered, Don't tell me you saw how beautiful my mom looked today and that's why you invited her into your room. Kantran felt a bit helpless and said, What are you talking about? Don't let your imagination run wild. The little girl immediately added, My mom is really beautiful, though. She's even an art teacher at Bakma Elementary School. Just then, Zhang Tuet walked out with a gentle smile. Kantran, I see you still have some laundry. Why don't I take it home and wash it for you? She paused for a moment and then continued in a sympathetic voice. Living alone here after your parents divorced must be tough. From now on, if you have dirty clothes, just bring them over and I'll wash them for you. However, he quickly objected, wait, I can wash them myself. But she didn't pay it any mind, calmly taking Tuvan's hand. Let's go, Tuvan. Time to go home. Big brother Kantran still has to study. He stood there stunned, frozen in place for a moment. The scene quickly shifted to night. His phone lay silently in his hand as he lay on the bed, thoughts constantly racing through Kantran's mind. His classmates were still discussing the transmigrators. Transmigration. Even what happened with Zhangzhuk tonight has become the talk of the town in Luo City, and Xieti Tai hasn't even announced her new update regarding the inner world yet. Glancing at his phone screen, he muttered to himself that there was still no news from his mother. Seeing an incoming call from her, Kantran sat up in bed and answered in a low voice. Hello? His mother's voice came through the phone. Little Tran, I've sent your living expenses to your father. He spoke gently to his mother. Mom, I have to turn in my workbook this week. However, she kept talking. Haw suddenly caught a fever, so I can't come visit you this weekend. All right then, go to sleep early, don't slack off on your studies. A brief silence passed, and finally, he softly replied, Yeah, all right. Kantran hung up, his face flashing with a flicker of sadness. He thought to himself, she finally called me after all. But it seems like she didn't even remember I skipped class. Kantran tossed his phone onto the bed with a thud. He lay flat, hand resting over his forehead, lost in thought. It didn't mean anything anymore. The scene shifted to a display showing 8:40 p.m. and 7:20 a.m., a countdown timer. Kantran was out jogging, unconsciously looking up. She even washed all my dirty clothes? Miss Zhangzhuk is really too kind. Zhangzhuk leaned her head out the window, smiling as she called out, Kantran, I've made some porridge. Come on up and eat. He waved his hand slightly to decline. No need, miss. But in his heart, he thought, it's been so long since anyone was this kind to me. I can't get used to it yet. Kantran took a bite of the pastry in his hand, changed his clothes, and calmly walked into school amidst the noisy chatter of students. Suddenly, a hand reached out and grabbed his arm. Kanthan frowned as he looked at him, curiously asking, What's wrong? Are you preparing to go sign up for the nanotech from that group of scammers? Or are you trying to participate in that rich lady's experiment to find a son? Haven't you checked the notifications in the class group yet? Someone from the class next door actually transmigrated and appeared right there. That person is still inside the classroom! Kantran couldn't understand what was happening. Wait, how do they even know that person is a transmigrator? Yesterday, no one in that class was wearing any special armor. Kanthan's clear voice rang out. He bragged about it himself. He held it in all day, but last night, while talking to classmates, he just couldn't help but spill the beans. Kantran's brows knit tightly together, feeling uneasy. What is going on? Are there really so many transmigrators at Luo City Foreign Language School? A school with over 2,000 students, and just among those discovered, this school alone already has 4. Then how many would there be across the whole country? Even if transmigrators only appear in a dozen or so cities, then the number of transmigrators is not small at all. A small map formed in Kantran's mind. I'm afraid the rules regarding transmigrators are limited. They'll be discovered by others in those cities very soon. Is it possible that by then, people from all over the country will flock to these dozen cities, all pretending to be the 3rd, 4th, or 5th group of transmigrators? For now, probably not. But if a 3rd group of transmigrators appears to prove this theory, then this hypothesis will become reality. He walked through the hallway amidst the gossip of the female students. I'm afraid that from now on, a dozen cities, including Luo City, will only get busier and more crowded. Duke Chu timidly followed behind the teachers along with another male student. Kantran patted his shoulder and whispered a warning, the one being, taken away by the administrators and teachers must be a transmigrator. We're late, let's go into the classroom. He sat in class, chin resting on his hand, deep in thought. People from that secret organization will be here soon. Tonight is the transmigration time. I can't let any more trouble arise. They might restrict Zhangzhuk's movements, and I'm afraid they'll even check the CCTV cameras. Even though where I live, there are very few cameras. Nothing is absolute. Kantran's eyes closed slightly. He had finally chosen his strategy for tonight. Apart from going to the restroom, I won't leave this room. Just then, a loud voice called out, "Kantran! Kantran! Look!" Kanthan, sitting nearby, held up his phone and shouted, "Shetty Tai's new update is out!" He reached out and grabbed his phone to watch. "Hello everyone, I'm Tai Tai. Due to some special reasons, I couldn't update the new findings yesterday." The frame on the phone shifted to a golden chair. "Today, I will share the new findings. It's a documentary-style description of the Inner World game. The battle of the powerful figures from the Khan Corporation. A high-rise building with a special symbol appeared. The Khan Corporation is one of the 5 major companies in the Inner World. It's said that those who control the underground world of the Khan Corporation have their hands reaching toward the corporate symbol, as if desperate to seize it. They say this is a tradition that has lasted for over 1,000 years. Every so often, a new shadow is chosen. This selection process is just like the legendary 9 dragons vying for the throne. The whole world revolves around the corporation's emblem. When the new shadow is selected, the inner world is thrown into chaos. 8 mysterious figures have appeared in the form of glass shards. Right now, there are 8 candidates for the position of shadow, each with extraordinary talent. These 8 contenders are named Kan Huai, Kan Van, Kan Thi, and there is one extremely mysterious person whose identity I still haven't been able to investigate. He bowed his head, carefully weighing everything in his mind. Perhaps this is the reason I ended up in prison number 18. A documentary? Ha, are you thinking of that Revenge of the Dragon movie? The countdown clock appeared once more. 6 hours, 19 minutes, and 29 seconds. Kantran stood up and glanced at Kanthan. The word tension was written all over his face, so he stayed silent. He remained quiet. The expression on his face seemed unclear. If this guy really transmigrated to prison number 18 too, then I'll risk being exposed to help him out. And then he calmly spoke up. If, I say if, you happen to transmigrate tonight, you must be careful. You've heard it on the internet too. The inner world is not safe. The guy was visibly startled, stuttering in his reply. I am not a transmigrator. Kantran casually pushed the classroom door open, looking back to leave one final remark. Knowing it in your heart is enough, he muttered to himself. The fact that you've managed to hold on until now and keep your secret shows that this kid knows a thing or two. The sky quickly turned dark. A hand gently turned the doorknob. Jiang Tuit stepped inside with her familiar smile. Kantran stood by the door and asked gently, "Ms. Jiang Tuit, is something the matter?" She spoke in a soft voice. "Oh, it's like this. I know you are a transmigrator." The countdown is ending in just a moment. A bead of sweat rolled down her forehead, and her tone was filled with anxiety. "The inner world is very dangerous. I'm not even sure if I can make it back." The words that followed from Jiang Tuit made Kantran's eyes widen. "If I can't return tomorrow, could you please help me look after Tu Van for a day?" He firmly and decisively shifted his attitude, the complete opposite of before. "Why are you saying things like that? You will definitely make it back. You don't know how dangerous that world is, that's why you're comforting me, but I know all too well." Jiang Tuit's youthful face suddenly turned pale. "In that world, if you don't have the backing of the 5 major corporations, human life is worthless." Her voice remained steady. "It's not like I'm asking you to take care of Tu Van for too long. Tomorrow her grandmother is coming here from Trintan." The corners of his mouth curled up and he readily agreed. "Yes, I agree to help you, but I still hope that nothing happens to you." Jiang Tuit seemed to shed her worries, letting out a soft, thank you." She pulled out a key and held it out to him. "Keep this at your place. Having my house key will make it easier for you to get in if anything happens." Kantran took the key and watched it silently for a long moment. Thoughts gradually surfaced in his mind. Is this considered trusting me? Kantran opened his mouth and slid something that looked like a USB drive inside. The countdown read 9 minutes and 59 seconds. The ticking sound echoed while he pinched his own arm. 5. Finally, Kantran sat still on the bed, not moving a muscle. The surrounding scenery rapidly transformed into a digitized zone. Space cracked and finally shifted to a white cotton pillow. Kantran lay on his bed, silently lifting a hand to support his forehead. However, the smile on his lips was undisguised. Thank goodness I transmigrated to this place again. Otherwise, all my previous efforts would have been in vain. It was hard enough to gain favor from Lai Thukdong. It almost went down the drain. Then, Contran sat up and slowly pondered carefully. Regardless of who Lai Thuk Dong really is, the power displayed by Tutu alone confirms one thing. This is a person of great influence in this inner world. Now I can be certain that every time I transmigrate, I return to the exact time I left. Images of Thuk Dong were appearing in Contran's memory. The canon melody I memorized still works. Perhaps most transmigrators would be confused and wouldn't know how to get what they want. But I have already transmigrated to Li Thuk Dong's place. Perhaps other transmigrators have witnessed the grandeur outside in this strange world. But that doesn't matter. Looking at the water-covered USB drive in his hand, he told himself, as long as I have this in my body, I can pass through that wall. He rubbed his chin, glancing at the wound he had just inflicted upon himself a moment ago. Coming here from the outside world, the wound carries over too. From this point, it is clear that this transmigrated body is still the same body from the outside world. The spacious prison landscape, filled with machinery, appeared before him. I rely on my own methods to gradually piece together knowledge about this world, knowledge about the mechanics of this transmigration. He walked up to a large door, observing in silence. I wonder why. Compared to that loveless world outside, I've started to find the noisy chatter, the sound I haven't heard in 2 days, actually kind of comforting now. The time remaining in this world is displayed on the inside of his forearm. Still just 2 short days. Will the countdown change? Will it get longer or shorter later on? As he stepped outside, he ran into 2 of Shu Tong's prisoners. They seemed to notice him, and Xiao Xiao raised a hand in a charismatic wave. While he remained calm, the other prisoners were clearly surprised. The moment he turned his head, they fell silent, and Contran strode away, leaving them to whisper among themselves. Hey, he's actually greeting us. Did you see that?
And he's even smiling at us. Cantran's brown eyes flicked downward. A new group must have
Been brought in after midnight. Seeing the crowd below made him even more restless. The second group of transmigrators from the outside world must have arrived here by now. How am I supposed to spot the other transmigrators? And if they really are here, how do I hide my own identity? Suddenly, he saw something unexpected. Wait, that's Duke Chu from the class next door. I can't go down there now. He'll definitely recognize me. Suddenly, a loud shout from above made Duke Chu turn pale. Look, new guys, we'll have to find some entertainment for them later. Kwang Nia said with a smug look, Welcome to prison number 18. This was quickly caught by Contran's gaze. He used to find this kid annoying, but this time he felt a bit closer to him. Duck Chu couldn't hide the fear in his eyes. Prison number 18? Finally, he leaned forward and asked, Excuse me, who is Lai Shu Tong? The prisoner being asked just gritted his teeth. Huh? Is this guy trying to pull strings? He gestured with his hand toward a certain direction. Right there, the guy down below. His golden yellow pupils couldn't hide his own intentions. Sure enough, Xiao Xiao hadn't lied. Looking at the man's serious demeanor made Duke Chu feel a little hopeful deep down, looking at the aura of that middle-aged man. Just by looking, you could tell he was a hidden boss. Shu Tong's group was leisurely enjoying their time, when suddenly Xiao Xiao's eyebrows lifted lazily as Duke Chu came screaming, running away from the people behind him. Oh no! I have to find Lai Shu Tong! Suddenly, a hand reached out and accurately flicked his forehead. Xiao Xiao looked down at him from above, feeling a bit curious. 2 days in and you're acting strange. A newbie, and you dare to come looking for our boss? Panicked, looking at the aggressive crowd behind him, Duke Chu stammered, well, I'm here to accept a mission. I'm one of your own. The look on his face shifted to pure contempt and disbelief. What is this supposed to mean? How come I've never seen you guys in the organization? And for hell's sake, why are you playing spy just to get caught? Seeing this, he grew even more panicked. I really am here for a mission, a class change mission. However, the guy firmly brushed Duke Chu's hand away. Get lost. What are you still standing there for? Drag him away from me! The guys behind him broke out in a cold sweat, quickly replying, Yes, sir, we're on it. Even so, he stubbornly knelt and wailed, Lai Shu Tong, I came to accept the class change mission. Shu Tong remained silent for a long time, not saying a word, and this silence made the surrounding prisoners curious. Soon, their expressions turned into mocking sneers. What is that brat babbling about? Is he scared out of his mind? I'm gonna die laughing. Shosho waved his hand, feeling immensely annoyed. Which lunatic is this now? Duck Chu struggled against the prisoners, pulling him away. Where did I go wrong? I transmigrated to prison number 18. Wasn't it said that this place is the starting point for the selection? According to what Xiao Xiao mentioned, there are 3 career paths. The first 2 were just mentioned in passing. Only this prison number 18 path is the most likely. He reached his hand out toward the retreating figure. But maybe this isn't the right place for a class change mission? Did I get it all wrong? His painful screams made Xiao Xiao turn his head back. Ah, let me go! One of them immediately yelled, Damn it, this bastard even tried to bite me! Chase him down! Duke Chu's small hand balled into a fist. At exit number 4, he frantically pounded the door and shouted, Let me out! They're trying to torture me! Let me out! Suddenly, a shiver ran down his spine. A robot appeared out of nowhere, making him tremble all over. Its terrifyingly large figure was more than enough to intimidate Duke Chu. His scream echoed throughout the entire prison. Contran, walking down the hallway, couldn't help but mutter to himself, Is this kid crazy? He just arrived in a new world. Doesn't he know he should have checked out the situation first? Xiao Xiao sat down at the table and whispered, Boss, have you noticed anything strange lately? Just the other day, the kid arrived and immediately went insane. He kept rambling about some low city or whatever, talking as if he were the heir to some major financial conglomerate. And today another idiot showed up demanding you give him a mission right after arriving. A mission? Seriously? Li Shutong closed his eyes and replied calmly, Something does feel off indeed. The cat on the table widened its jade green eyes. He sheepishly pulled his hand back, scratched his head, and played it cool. Hey, where did that kid Contran go? I was so energetic at dinner yesterday. How come I don't see him anywhere today? Meanwhile, Guang Yi's group was sitting back enjoying the show. Haha, what a moron, look at him getting dragged away by the guards. Contran walked past him and whispered a reminder. After you finish eating, have your people neutralize everyone and then ask them who they are in the outside world. I know the greeting is their standard routine, but don't go too hard on them. Life isn't easy for anyone, he quickly replied. Got it. Contran's brow furrowed tightly. He wondered if there were still other transmigrators hiding their identities. If so, they certainly couldn't fake their backgrounds. Back in the outside world, if someone can clearly state their origin and background, they must be a local. If they can't, they're a transmigrator. Several prisoners following Guang Yi glanced at Contran and whispered, Hey, look over there. Is that? How is he already up on the 6th floor? Yet, he remained calm and commanded, Stop looking. Let's go. A thought crossed his mind. It was just a shame that Non-Gengchen hadn't transmigrated to this prison. This prison number 18. Contran was slowly carrying his food tray when he saw Guang Yi pass by. Contran immediately said, Just go, I know. Deep down, he muttered to himself, There shouldn't be any more new transmigrators coming. Li Shutong sat leisurely in his chair, as if waiting for someone. Contran walked up and asked in a flat tone, Playing chess again today? He answered gently, No, not today. I'm not playing for the next few days. I have things to think about and there's a guest arriving soon. A faint spark of light flickered in the depths of his eyes. An uninvited guest? Contran asked. Li Shutong sat opposite him. I just saw a riot downstairs. What's that about? As he ate, he quietly probed. If someone could make Li Shutong call them an uninvited guest, they definitely weren't someone to mess with. I didn't want to get involved in uncontrollable situations just yet, so there was no need to ask too much. He kept his eyes closed, showing no emotion. I don't know. Contran didn't press further, thinking to himself. Even Li Shutong doesn't know? It must be the first time he's run into something like this. That idiot Liu Deju, judging by Xiao Xiao's reaction, he really thinks this is some kind of game. A countdown of 37 hours appeared on his arm. Suddenly, a commotion broke out behind them, drawing their attention. A tall figure stood at the main entrance. It seemed to be a new prisoner. Everyone in the dining hall was stunned to see him. Guo Huchan walked in aggressively, with a line of guards escorting him and equipment surrounding him, observing his every move. Finally, they formed a circle around Guo Huchan. Contran glanced over, secretly observing him. It was the first time he had seen someone escorted in during the day like this. It was also the first time prison number 18 security forces had been out in such full strength. At a glance, it was obvious that Huchan was a tough guy. Before this, he thought Ye Wan was already quite powerful, but compared to this prisoner, he was still far behind. As he stepped inside, the guards gradually backed off. Gu Huchan savagely grabbed a nearby prisoner by the mouth. With one hand, he easily crushed the man's head. He hissed through gritted teeth, Where is Li Shutong? The unfortunate prisoner's face turned purple, and he weakly pointed behind him, choking out, pinpointing the location of Contran's group. Guo Huchan threw the guy aside like a sandbag and walked forward. Li Shutong stood up immediately and said to Contran, "I didn't expect this guest to be so direct. His name is Guo Huchan. You've probably heard of him, right?" He left his seat and stood in front of them. "In a moment, you and Yewan step back. Don't get hurt." Yewan couldn't help but look toward Contran. To be able to have the boss personally remind him of this little matter. It seems Shosho and I have underestimated the boss's favoritism toward him. Lu Guangyi sat to one side, watching his hurried footsteps. Guo Huchan. "He's here too." No wonder the boss said a monk from the south was coming. He curled his lip, unable to hide his excitement. Ever since the boss stepped in, he hadn't even looked for any clues, spending every day playing chess with Li Shudong or reading books, acting as if he had nothing better to do. It feels like he's just waiting for that guy, Guo Huchan, to come in and stir up the pot. By then, we can just sit back and reap the rewards. Guo Huchan bluntly held out his hand to Li Shudong. "Let's stop beating around the bush. My goal this time is forbidden item S005. Tell me where it's hidden now. I'll take it and be on my way." He calmly patted the cat twice, signaling it to get down. Shudong smiled, appraising his tone. "You should be a bit more polite to your elders. That's how you avoid getting hurt." Huchan didn't want to waste words. He just wanted the item. "Just hand over forbidden item S005, and I'll be polite enough for you." Shudong questioned why the Black Doe organization wanted a forbidden item. Why is the Black Doe organization suddenly so interested in forbidden items? Listening to your tone, I almost thought you'd already broken into the Forbidden Court. He had been straightforward from the beginning. "Black. Do we oppose entities with supernatural powers, so naturally we won't pass up any assistance. Even though your night organization walks a different path, we share the same ultimate goal. You should be able to understand that, right?" Shudong then wanted to know how they found him, and why they had to come to Prison 18 first. Being an agent for the Black Dao, he knew the situation well. "The rumor outside is that the Chen Consortium has signed a treaty with you. As long as you can control it, they'll grant you absolute freedom here in Prison 18. And that forbidden item you personally control must hold immense power." He immediately denied it, like throwing a bucket of cold water on the guy. "You've misunderstood. I haven't made any deals with the Chen clan. Don't listen to rumors and make wild assumptions." King Chen began to understand the situation after hearing their conversation. In Shosho's intelligence reports, the Forbidden Court was mentioned. It seemed like it was linked to that forbidden item. The forbidden item Guo Huchan mentioned must be the thing I'm looking for. Perhaps this is also a test for my struggle for the Shadow Throne. Guo Huchan, imposing and aggressive, used a threatening tone. "Where is S005? Li Shudong lowered his head, as if teasing him. "I know where it is, but I won't tell you." Huchan stomped his foot in anger, causing the room to vibrate slightly. The overhead surveillance devices immediately began to blare. "Warning! Warning!" He glared at Li Shudong, questioning him while the alarm kept wailing. "Warning! Warning!" He replied seriously. "Huchan, there is no why. It's just because I quite like that S005. Several devices shone laser beams onto him, leaving everyone around them stunned. Why did the metal storm trigger? Usually, there would be a riot for half an hour. Only when mechanical security couldn't control the situation would the metal storm be activated. King Chen looked around the room and counted silently. 36 out of 71 metal storm units have activated. Guo Huchan didn't care much. He stomped his feet and lunged straight forward, wanting to challenge Li Shudong. His fist was just inches away from him, with the metal storm still firing up. It fired bullets continuously, sending prisoners running in a panic. Right now, 36 metal storm units were firing like crazy, creating immense pressure, but the other 36 were the real death machines. Yet, in the midst of that hail of bullets, there was one exception. Guo Huchan attacked Shudong. Nearby, Yewan had quietly activated a defensive mode. He threw another strike at Shudong. I used just 2 fingers to block him. Li Shudong looked at him with sharp eyes. Only the 2 of them were enclosed in a protective bubble. Li Shudong slightly turned his head back and deactivated the defensive mode. I was suddenly shocked by what he saw, his mouth hanging open. King Chen was still sitting calmly at the dining table, amidst the hail of bullets, being able to sit in that position. A blind spot. That position must be the only blind spot in Prison 18. Li Shudong smiled involuntarily, marveling that such ability and character were not things someone of that age should possess. Is this the shadow that the Qing family is about to choose? With one flick of his hand, he sent Huchan flying far away. In his mind, he only had one thought: when will I ever find a successor like this? He slid a long way, the force so great it was smoking. Guo Huchan struggled to prop himself up on the ground. He calmly thought about Li Shudong. From start to finish, he had only managed to ruffle that guy's training robe a little. Just a little bit. There's a rumor that Li Shudong is worthy of the title of a demigod in this world. Li Shudong before him suddenly seemed to glow with an aura. It looked like the gap between him and this guy was huge. It seemed Shudong was in a good mood. Want to keep fighting? Hu Chen was furious, but there was nothing he could do. No more fighting, no more. If I can't beat you, why bother fighting? Don't worry, even if you don't say it, I'll still find that item. I wasn't in any rush at all. No worries, take your time looking. King Shin was dumbfounded by this situation. No wonder this bald guy has been single until now. Just a moment ago, he was acting like it was a life-or-death struggle, and now he's cowering in fear. He flips his attitude so quickly. He carefully pondered a strategy to reap the benefits without doing the work. If Lai Shudong knows where that thing is, I'll just follow him. Maybe one day he'll let it slip. Shudong felt incredibly baffled. You calculated this position too? King Shin didn't dare to confirm yet, as the situation was still complex. Although my calculation ability is much stronger than an average person's, I still couldn't calculate it. With such a massive amount of ballistic missiles, we can only narrow down the general area. The man kindly warned Contran not to waste time, explaining that narrowing down the area wouldn't help him find the exact location anyway, so Contran presented the results he had investigated. I only managed to narrow it down to 4 spots, and coincidentally the place you sit every day is one of them. So there's no need to consider the other locations anymore. Shu Tong laughed heartily. Ha, you've got guts, kid. Even while Hu Tian was trying to meditate in peace, he couldn't get a moment's rest because of the prisoners around him. Xiao Xiao had barely arrived and was already adding fuel to the fire. When gods fight, mortals suffer. When titans clash, the flies and mosquitoes die. The people fighting are fine, but the other prisoners who aren't involved are the ones who truly get the short end of the stick. Hai seems bold enough to speak his mind. Hey, Quach Ho Thien, isn't it rumored everywhere that you are benevolent, kind, and do many good deeds? Then what about the people who have been dragged into your mess? Hu Ten opened his mouth, full of philosophical nonsense. Are you really talking to me about the injured and the innocent inside a prison? In here, everyone is accountable. There's no such thing as an innocent person. Xiao Xiao felt sick just listening to his hypocrisy and gave him a sidelong glance. Besides, I'm no monk. Don't use words like benevolent or charitable with me. Though he felt awful inside, Hu Ten tried to endure the pain. His internal organs felt as if they were burning. He left when his original objective failed. Contran remembered the function of the protective shield from earlier. It had blocked the bullet. Suddenly, Xiao Xiao winked at Contran. Just go ahead and speak. The sound won't travel outside. Only then did Shu Tong receive the information. This morning I saw Lo Kuang-Nia interrogating those newcomers during the orientation. You're the one who ordered him to do that, aren't you? Contran didn't bother hiding it. That's right. He looked at Contran with suspicious eyes. Why interrogate them? You have to be careful with every word to avoid bringing trouble upon yourself. I wanted to see if any factions were trying to muscle in. That's forbidden for us. We need to find a reasonable excuse to explain that action. Shu Tong is truly a smooth talker. I like your directness, but I don't see Lo Kuang-Nia mistreating them. Was that your instruction? But I remember the first time you came here. You didn't help anyone else. Contran replied, I don't have the energy to play the hero, I only do what I can. His internal thoughts aligned with his current reality. If you can't even keep yourself safe, you can only watch others die without being able to help. That was his principle. Contran's life had never been smooth sailing, so he had learned how to be selfish from a young age. The chess pieces on the table, bathed in light, were a metaphor for Contran's future, a hand dealt by life, not chosen by him. Something outside caught Xiao Xiao's attention. He panicked upon seeing Hu Tian using just a few fingers to balance his entire body on the floor. Xiao Xiao immediately guessed the motive behind his suspicious behavior. That guy. Hey, can't hear us talking from over there, so you're trying to get closer to eavesdrop? Does he not realize how huge he is? This unusual behavior of his is drawing quite a lot of attention. Hu Ten sensed the cold, sharp glares fixed on him. I've been spotted. The space fell into silence for a moment. Fearing a security leak, Shutong told everyone to disperse. Meeting adjourned. A pity we couldn't finish the game today, but I'm going to go read. The other prisoners groaned and sighed. Damn, how long are we going to have to clean this up? Give me a break, I'm still scrubbing. He lashed out at Hu Tian. If you lost, just sit there quietly. We don't want to make an enemy of Black Spade. We know life in the wilderness isn't easy for you lot. But don't go causing trouble for us either. Do you think I have no way to deal with you? As soon as he opened his mouth, he was challenging others. Try laying a finger on me and see what happens. Xiao Xiao looked at his bald head, utterly bewildered. Every prisoner's meal tray came with an egg. Contran didn't ask for much and ate heartily. Even though the prison food in this world was ground meat, it still tasted like fresh meat compared to the dry biscuits that he ate back in the outside world. It was much better. He suddenly noticed something unusual. Wait. Contran couldn't swallow his bite of food as a question popped up. He couldn't figure out why one of the 4 security cameras was pointed right at him. Could it be that just now, did I catch someone's attention because I found a blind spot? He couldn't stop wondering who exactly was behind this prison. Xiao Xiao announced something. Just now, the boss let me talk to the guy who delivers the food. From now on, they'll be adding real meat to your meals. Take as much as you want. Contran felt confused. Why? Xiao Xiao's words were filled with sinister implications. You'll find out soon enough. It's just, this might not necessarily be a good thing. After eating, Contran went to the restroom to get some water. He washed up, feeling exhausted. Contran quickly climbed into bed. It was that feeling again. You close your eyes, hoping for a good night's sleep, but you see Contran slowly open his eyes. Standing before you is a man, his eyes bound by the scorching desert sun. The heat has him dripping with sweat. Contran immediately pulls out a bottle of water. A scrawny, wretched-looking prisoner approaches him, pleading, Contran, give me a sip of water. If we don't drink, the 2 of us will actually die. We aren't drinking your water either. Name your price. Contran freezes, stunned by the familiar voice. Facing a companion on the brink of death, he wonders how to set a price. This joking around in such a dire situation makes him uncomfortable. I'll let the guy next to you watch you die of thirst first, then let him make an offer, shall I? Xiao Xiao has to give in. Are you even human? It turns out Contran has a reason for acting this way. I know this is your nightmare, so obviously I won't have any sympathy for you. Xiao Xiao isn't very surprised. How strange. Now that you can maintain your consciousness after entering the dreamscape, surely you can resist the nightmare's summoning, right? Contran confidently asserts. Maybe. Xiao Xiao looks at him with a puzzled expression. If you can resist the dreamscape, why did you come in? If you had just waited 5 minutes without falling asleep, you could have escaped the nightmare. It's summoning you. Contran was worried about him, which is why he entered the dreamscape. I actually thought you had something you wanted to say, which is why you came here. Then Xiao Xiao smirks at Contran's question. What are you trying to test this time? Amidst the poetic space, Xiao Xiao reveals the whole truth. Originally, the boss just wanted me to see you part of the way. After that, he would let the nightmare reshape your humanity, letting you taste a bit of suffering. He didn't expect Contran to have a constitution different from ordinary people. It's just that now, you've resisted the nightmare so easily. It seems the nightmare is useless now. The boss will have to guide you himself. A similar situation unfolds, making him reflect. This time, the desert scene isn't like the previous one. It feels more like a teacher giving an assignment to a student. Xiao Xiao immediately stops him. Don't think too much. He kindly reminds Contran not to be arrogant. Right now, the boss is only admiring him. Later on, whether you can become the boss's student or not is not certain. Xiao Xiao didn't expect him to be so blunt. You're envious of me? He feels disappointed in himself. That's right, I'm envious. Not everyone has the capacity to become the boss's student. At the very least, Deep Van and I can't. Contran questions life itself. Why is Xiao Xiao so frustrated about being disqualified before even getting started? Because the 2 of us couldn't pass the first trial. I believes in Contran's ability, but the boss feels he can pass. You still have many doubts. Can you pass? Xiao Xiao makes it easy to understand. It's a path of seeking survival within death. Every time you want to level up, you must reach a desperate situation. You must endure suffering. Contran turns to question him. Then why me? Xiao Xiao gives a reason that even he cannot deny. Because the boss says you have the courage to keep living even when driven into a corner. Contron is a bit puzzled. If it's so painful, why are you still envious of me? He laments his fate. That's because that path of cultivation, the person walking that path must have infinite potential, but Deep Van and I were drained long ago. Even though that path is very painful, you must understand that only by experiencing a life of suffering can you stand above others. You slide toward the answer to your own question. Oh, all right. How old is Li Shudong? If he exists in two worlds at once, does he age faster? Then, can someone with extraordinary dimension-traveling abilities like Li Shudong have their lifespan extended? Xiao knows him better than anyone. 52 years old. Contron cannot believe his ears. But Uncle Li is only 35 or 36 years old. He laughs his head off because he managed to fool Contron. Look at your naive expression. I wouldn't be surprised if someone like the boss could live to be 100. We've been following the boss since we were very small. So many years have passed, but the boss hasn't changed at all. You are curious about Xiao's decision. Why did the two of you follow him? Xiao admits a harsh truth. For no reason at all. Deep Van and many others were orphans. The stars, the ice in the vast sky seems to symbolize the parents he mentions. You were born in Khan City, so you don't understand how miserable life is outside. You won't be able to understand the kinds of struggles that exist in this world. It could be that your parents were walking down the street and ran into thugs letting off steam, then got into an argument. Or perhaps when they were working in a chemical plant, they were exposed to radiation. Or it could be that while using a neural connection to the virtual network, they were attacked by hackers. So many past hardships are vividly portrayed by Xiao in just a few short seconds. After that, you cannot pay the office rent, the insurance company refuses to pay out, then the bank seizes your house and kicks you out onto the street. No one cares if you live or die. At that moment, your life becomes a void of darkness. Criminal organizations want to kidnap you to traffic drugs, or even worse, they turn your life into a video, turn it into virtual content, and sell it for money. That very day changed his life forever. But right at that moment, someone appeared before him and said, as if he were a savior sent from above, "Follow me, and I will give you a new life." And Xiao had decided to trust him. It didn't matter who he was, he would follow him anyway. Qingxin suddenly reflected on himself. Compared to them, what did the sufferings of his own life even amount to? I wanted to know the reason behind Li Shutong's actions, why he took them in. Xiao only answered vaguely, because we are useful, and what he wanted to do couldn't be accomplished alone. Qingxin didn't fully trust him yet. Even now, he didn't know what the purpose of that so-called Night Organization or the Black Spade Organization was, or what exactly Black Spade wanted to control. Was it the 5 major corporations or something else? He grew even more suspicious after interacting with Xiao, yet Li Shutong had adopted Lin Xiao and Ye Wan. It was clearly to use them, but Lin Xiao and his group had no idea about this. Xiao reminded him, "All right, get some rest early." Qingxin tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Even though he had escaped the dreamscape, he had already seen that mysterious basement of Li Shutong's, the P90. Could his place be exchanged for a chance to open the door to a new world? I wasn't even sure if this P90 was enough. Plus, he couldn't explain the origins of the gun clearly. Might as well just wait. The knocking grew louder and louder. "Let me out!" The timer that suddenly appeared on his arm made Qizhen lose his composure. "Is anyone there? Hurry up and let me out! Why are you locking me in here?" He screamed until his throat went hoarse. "Let me out! Let me out!" Qizhen cried and wailed miserably, comparing himself to the others who were like fish in water here. With people having armored bodies and gang members around, why was he the only one who ended up in such a sorry state? Just wait 24 hours and he could go back to the world outside. What was he supposed to tell his classmates? Should he say he successfully changed classes, or that he was imprisoned? He sat huddled in a corner, full of regret. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have bragged to everyone. The transmigrator system updated the status. Countdown 16 hours, 20 minutes, 0 seconds. Li Shutong continued playing his game. He observed everything meticulously. Ever since you let Lu Guangyi know how to keep things in check when he makes a move, there have been fewer people crying in this prison. It's just, have you noticed? The other factions in this prison are already very dissatisfied with Lu Guangyi. Qingxin had also realized their ill intentions. I know, usually the 3 gangs take turns greeting the newcomers. It's considered a bit of entertainment for everyone. Now Lu Guangyi is monopolizing this. Naturally, that will annoy many people. I just trust that Lu Guangyi can handle this situation. Li Shutong cast his eyes toward the other prisoners. Have you ever thought that these newcomers might not necessarily be grateful to you? He used a classic example. You're walking down the street and run into a beggar, then you toss him some loose change. In reality, that pocket change doesn't mean much compared to their hardships, but you buy yourself a little bit of joy and peace of mind. He couldn't deny that he had once saved Xiao Xiao in his time of need. Huden suddenly pushed his chair back. His actions caught King Chen's attention. He thought to himself, can't win, so you want to join them? Hu Tian was really pushing his luck. For better or worse, I'm considered a big shot in the underworld. You guys are eating meat, but you leave me with the scraps? Is this how you treat guests? Shosho looked at him with contempt. Are you the same as us? If not, why don't you play another round against our boss? If you win, you can have some. How about that? He was afraid of losing, so he quickly changed the subject. Don't always talk about fighting and killing like that. It's not good. Besides, the three of you eating is fine. Why does this chess-playing kid get to eat meat too? He's just an ordinary person after all. Hu Tian suddenly jammed his chopsticks straight into the meat in King Chen's meal tray. He leaned in close to King Chen's ear and whispered, Hey kid, go order another portion. Leave this one for me. King Chen just glanced at him without caring. King Chen remained silent, waiting to see what would happen. Are you trying to see how I'll react? Hu Tian had no shame. I even acted arrogant. You all saw it, right? He gave it up himself. Right. He planned to stuff all the meat into his mouth in one go. Then I won't be polite. Drops of sauce were slowly dripping down. King Chen replayed the analyses from the past. No, this isn't what I'm looking for. He tried to reorganize the images in his head. The rays of light converged into a single point. King Chen called his people over. Lu Guangyi appeared in an instant. I'm here. Boss, what's the matter? You found the answer. I'm naming 8 people. Bring them here. Everyone froze in place. They didn't know why Hu Tian was so angry. King Chen had always been one to say exactly what was on his mind. Are these 8 people your men? But at that moment he only heard a soft reply, not entirely. He didn't get the answer he was looking for, so he, without holding anything back, recounted everything he had seen the moment he was brought in here. He narrowed his eyes, searching for those 5 people. All 5 of them raised their index fingers at the same time. Although I don't know what that gesture means, I'm certain they did it for him to see. The other 3 glanced at each other, exchanging looks. Contron still clearly remembers the image of those 3 from earlier. Lam Tiu Tiu was completely shocked by the situation. To think he could remain so calm and observe everything. Back then, we were only focused on the boss amidst the hail of bullets, not paying any attention to everyone else's reactions. Lai Thuk Dong nodded slightly, as if confirming the intel. This prison number 18 has all sorts of people. It's only natural that various factions are keeping an eye on me. Right then, he suddenly looked over and asked the boss, should we transfer this group to another prison? At this, he paused in thought. Moving them for no reason would only give outsiders more to gossip about regarding me. Jeep Van, take these 8 to the special holding cells right now. Interrogate them and find out who the other 3 are and who sent them. Deep Van obeyed, simply replying, yes. Before he could finish, Lo Guangyi pointed toward the other prisoners. With an expression that was 30% helpless and 70% just like you, Tiu Tiu saw this and felt a bit worried. Boss, this kid has discovered our people. Sitting across from them, Contran was speechless. Who told you guys to just sit back and watch the show earlier? But Thukdong didn't care. He turned back to him. Even though you aren't a superhuman, your analytical skills and memory are things that even superhumans can't compare to. Ho Thien, who was scooping ice nearby, heard this and his jaw dropped. So he isn't one of the knights? On the surface, however, he asked, Brother, what should I call you? Facing the question, he just replied coldly, Contran. But Ho Thien was confused. The Con clan? Since when have the knights allied with the Con Corporation? Thukdong didn't beat around the bush and explained, just because someone has the surname Con doesn't mean they're part of the Con Corporation. Even if they were, they might not stay there for their whole lives. Isn't there a very famous person named Con in the wilds too? Hearing that, he quickly turned to look at Contran with a judgmental gaze, but with his high IQ, Ho Thien quickly changed the subject while handing him a food tray. Brother Contran, I wonder what you think of the Black Spade organization? Contran's face darkened as he said, It's nothing special. Though he said that aloud, he was thinking, considering my status, he came here to steal the forbidden item. So, I don't need to show him any respect. That remark left him completely frozen. Meanwhile, countless cameras above were watching, while below lay the scattered corpses. Jeep Van quickly used a cloth to pry one of their mouths open. He thought for a moment, then analyzed. Boss, it's poison hidden in the teeth. Just opening the mouth reveals a scent of ginkgo. Cyanide. Hothian glanced back and asked quietly, These three weren't people from Blackspade? Thukdong caught the question and said, Suicide attackers. It really is surprising, isn't it? Meanwhile, Contran sat in a corner, intently observing the bodies. His whole body was trembling, as if he'd forgotten to turn off a vibration setting. It didn't matter if it was the inner world or the outer world. It was his first time facing death. Contran pressed his lips together, trembling, trying to reassure himself. This is just a world of predators after all. During all this, the cameras above were still tracking their every move, a digital stream appearing. 15 hours, 21 minutes, 59 seconds. Opposite Contran, Thukdong was staring deep into his eyes. Suddenly he asked, First time seeing a dead person? For some reason, after a moment of reflection, he admitted, Yeah. Thukdong's eyes lit up upon hearing that. He grilled him. Scared? Even though he had been pushed into a corner, Contran stood his ground. Just a little scared. At that moment, lessons from his teachers flooded back. What a function was, what subject-predicate structures were. His parents had also taught him how to hold chopsticks, how to wash clothes, and how to take care of himself. But no one had ever taught him. After it all, what remains? Only one question haunted Contran's mind. What is death? Despite the trembling fear, he tried to steady his heart. Only by seeing it with your own eyes can you understand how terrifying it is to watch a life vanish right in front of you. Just then, Thukdong picked up a wooden chess piece, held it before Contran, and said, You know, everyone here has two lives. The second life begins from... As he placed the chess piece down, those cold words were uttered. When you realize that life happens only once, Contran's eyes widened, in surprise as Thukdong's words still echoed in his ears. From that moment on, you will start telling yourself that time is precious, while also realizing clearly how much time you have wasted. But then, as if he had just gained enlightenment, his eyes cleared up slightly. The more afraid you are, the calmer you must be. Contran made his next move while lost in thought. I must re-examine my past, and I must think about my future. He also quickly made a move, while continuously saying, It's highly likely those three suicide attackers were aiming for me. So you finding them means I owe you one. Having said that, Thukdong suddenly dangled a huge bait. You can trade for one thing here. What do you want, Contran? At this, he didn't hold back and went straight to the point. I want a membership list of the Lie Corporation. Hearing this answer, he was slightly curious. Huh? Why don't you trade for a way to become a superhuman? There aren't many people in this world I owe a favor to, but you're the only one who doesn't know how to value an opportunity. But as a smart person, he already had everything under control. Becoming a superhuman cannot be compared to the secret of a clan. I don't see it as a good deal. Besides, when the time is right, you'll give it to me yourself. No need to change, Li Shutong said, calmly picking up a new chess piece. After a moment of silence, he spoke again, praising him. You're smarter than I thought, and patient too. You know how to endure. Though you're not wrong about some things, when the time comes, you'll get what you want. Even though the fact that you hadn't seen bloodshed yet disappointed me, upon reflection. And then the old fox Li Shutong made a surprising declaration. If you were indifferent to human life, I would find you even more boring. Having said that, he turned and ordered Liu Ti to fetch the list. The boy hurriedly replied, Yes, though he knew the old man wouldn't just hand it over to anyone without thorough investigation. I'm very curious, why do you want this? Yet, King Shen was quite indifferent. I shouldn't need to explain further, right? Li Shutong, seeing him being difficult, was even more amused. Fine, I won't ask any more. This is me paying you back. Do whatever you want with it. The scene shifts to another room, filled only with cold emptiness. King Chen walks in, his thoughts in turmoil. He had assumed Lin Xiaoxiao would come to check on his nightmare today, but it didn't happen. Perhaps Li Shutong felt there was no need to check anymore. He could feel that. His whole being couldn't stop thinking about his future. He was getting closer and closer to the path of the superhuman. King Chen's eyes were squeezed shut in satisfaction. Returning this time wouldn't be as nerve-wracking as the last, because he lay tired on his comfortable bed to rest, not noticing his mind gradually drifting away. So I have seen with my own eyes what death really is. Early the next morning, as birds chirped on the branches, King Chin slowly raised an arm to check. He saw the numbers 40 minutes, 20 seconds, and 7 milliseconds. He was so focused that his mind was filled with lingering thoughts. Every time he traveled, it was silent, not even waking up anyone who was sleeping. After thinking for a while, King Chin hurriedly put on his shirt before leaving. After 2 stressful days, returning to the outside world was a huge relief. But he was already looking forward to the next travel in 2 days. His hand rested on the doorknob, preparing to leave while lost in thought, because there were still many opportunities waiting for him there. Right at that moment, hitting his eyes, was a familiar figure. Out of politeness, King Chin turned and greeted her. "Good morning, Ms. Jiang Shui. About this trip. Everything okay? Nothing wrong? Are you getting ready to take Xiaoyun to school? That's right. After you finish school tonight, come straight home. I bought some fish and pork ribs. Let's have a celebratory meal." Yet, he seemed not to understand what was happening. Celebrate what? But he only received the reply, I'll tell you tonight. No matter how much King Chin asked, she only said, "You'll know when the time comes." Those words kept him thinking all the way to school. Before entering the school gate, King Chin suddenly stopped cold. The information on his phone made him collapse. Only a few words, but they meant a life was about to vanish. Someone bought information on the dark web stating that killing a traveler would end their chance to ever travel again. The image of scattered corpses flashed through King Chin's mind once more. Reality is always more brutal than written descriptions. However, the scene inside the school remained peaceful, as if nothing had happened. As soon as King Chin sat at his desk, his classmates swarmed him, making him a bit tired. Liu Dezhu from the class next door arrived at school, and he had thought he would be like that guy Huang Tuan, traumatized and filing for withdrawal. Unexpectedly, he acted as if nothing had happened. He glanced at the next class and looked at him with eyes full of judgment. Not only was he bragging about becoming a traveler, but he also traveled to prison number 18 and even met Li Shutong, claiming he had spoken to him. While everyone was going crazy over Liu Dezhu, King Chin sighed softly. While everyone was chasing after that guy, he went against the crowd to leave this place. In this situation, revealing himself as a traveler would be extremely foolish, especially saying he knew one of the most powerful figures in the inner world. As he walked, King Chin was lost in thought, afraid that the secret organization would come soon. Just then, King Chin's eyes caught a familiar back. He ran over and shouted, "Nan Gangchen!" King Chin approached him closely to ask, "Nan Gangchen, what's wrong? Did someone beat you?" Yet he only received an indifferent reply. "Nothing. I just didn't sleep well last night." But deep in his heart, he was thinking, with no armor, no superpowers, of course my spirits wouldn't be good. Very quickly, they reached the classroom. In front of them were female students excitedly rushing past. "Did you hear? That Liu Dezhu from the next class returned from traveling. Hurry and go see." King Chin, seeing this, asked, "Was he tortured by someone when he traveled there?" Gengchen was startled by those words. "Travel? What travel?" The two of them immediately cast their eyes toward the girls, but his mind was drowned in thoughts. "I am certain Nan Gengchen has traveled, but what exactly did he go through in the inner world to make him become so terrified like this?" After a moment of thought, Tran quietly asked, "What did you actually do when you transmigrated there?" The guy turned pale as a ghost at those words and stammered, "I didn't transmigrate. Whoever says I transmigrated, I'll fight them." You didn't want to push your friend, so you just said, "All right, fine," while thinking to yourself, "Give me a break." You couldn't get any info out of him. No time, no location, not even his status. So even if you wanted to help, you couldn't. While the two of you were settled in your seats, the girls outside were still buzzing. "Is it for real? He said he actually met Li Shutong? This kid is so lucky." Meanwhile, Kanthan was sitting in the corner, shivering with fear. After a while, he finally gathered the courage to ask, "Wait, didn't you say before? I told you there's a group of transmigrators already, right?" "Yeah, you mentioned that." That made Tran want to laugh. He really couldn't hold it in anymore. Finding someone to vent to, Kanthan kept rambling. "Didn't I tell you there was someone selling socks in the inner world? But you just replied, 'Uh-huh.'" Hearing that, Kanthan continued, "Don't ask why I know this. Anyway, you're not a transmigrator. You couldn't have brought socks back from there. A cold voice echoed again. Yeah, and didn't I tell you that? I kept going. There are other transmigrators who said that if we go there, we can get in touch with that sugar mommy. But you still just answered, uh-huh. Only then did Kanthan feel a bit relieved. This part is real, he shouted excitedly into Kantran's ear. I heard this from someone else too. I'm not a transmigrator. I'm not a transmigrator. You were too tired to deal with it, so you just brushed him off. Yeah, I get it. But you couldn't help thinking, so this time, the transmigrator got picked up by that sugar mommy. Outside, the girls were still gossiping loudly. Don't push, let me hear. Suddenly, Kantran turned to probe. Did you get a lot of money? That completely freaked Kanthan out. I told you, I'm not a transmigrator. Just as the gossip was peaking, the school loudspeaker blared, instantly grabbing everyone's attention outside. That voice had everyone hooked. The crowd outside was unusually stirred up at the sight of these big shots. Whoa, who are those people? Even the director of the Department of Education is there to receive them. Looks like they're heading to the next class. Sitting in class, Kantran muttered to himself. So they really came. You kept glancing outside to observe them. Seeing those people in black made you think. Their appearance had quickly become the center of everyone's attention. They walked forward with such swagger. Their sharp demeanor and intensity stood out like a sore thumb in this school. Even now, you clearly remembered the first time you met them and that crushing pressure. And just as Kantran had predicted, Liu Daju was indeed taken away. The fact that the director of the Department of Education came personally meant this organization had some serious government backing. Even under the gaze of everyone, they showed no fear. This actually made you feel a bit more at ease. But life isn't always a fairy tale, and the unexpected happened. He actually stood outside bragging about everything. By the end of the first period, Liu Daju was already back. According to him, he was taken to an office where the men in black asked for his address and phone number, telling him he wasn't allowed to leave Luo City. That left Kantran even more stunned. The men in black told him there were many transmigrators in Luo City. They were gathering all the transmigrators together, preparing a plan to train them. Then they showed him some photos to identify people. They suspected those in the photos were also transmigrators, because that person had appeared at another transmigrator's house. According to their tracking data, this person's activity radius was within 3 kilometers. But because it was near an old residential area, many places didn't have cameras, or they were broken. So their data was patchy, which was why they were questioning Liu Daju. You glanced over, suddenly realizing that the person they were looking for was you. Kantran sighed inwardly. That day, I specifically wore an outfit I hadn't touched in 2 years and avoided every single camera angle. Looks like my constant preparation wasn't for nothing. Just then, you heard Kanthan wailing loudly. When people transmigrate, they end up next to a big boss. They even get to talk to them. Who knows, maybe one day they'll become a superhero. Why is the difference between people so huge? That left you completely speechless. Admiring them, huh? Hearing that, he burst into loud sobs and asked, Don't you even admire them? I even promised to treat you to a meal once I made good money, but now I can't even afford to take you to a movie. But King Chin just gently comforted him. All right, just be a good boy and go to school. Aren't there still plenty of ordinary people living their lives? You don't necessarily have to become a transmigrator. Kanshin fell silent after hearing this, not saying a word. A moment later, he suddenly spoke up. Come to think of it, we haven't even paid our book fees yet. I still have to wait 2 more days. What about you? My mom got mad at my dad and went back to my grandparents' house. I can only ask my dad for it. Won't your dad give it to you? What did he say? Kanshin looked miserable and replied, He told me to just return the books. I thought wearily. Who would have thought that something as simple as book fees could stump 2 transmigrators? At this point, King Chin could only start thinking about ways to make money. He stared blankly into the empty space in front of him, lost in thought. Those old guys are getting smarter now. They refuse to play chess with me anymore. I have to find a way to make money in the inner world. As he was speaking, his gaze suddenly became deep and thoughtful. There's no way I'm entering a mountain of gold only to come back empty-handed. Qingshin walked through the food street, which was filled with mouth-watering aromas and the sounds of vendors. Fresh roasted sweet potatoes here, discounted eggs, get them while they're hot. But he didn't pay them any mind. It seems like I've developed a habit of skipping class lately. A sudden sense of loss welled up in his heart. When he was little, back when he followed his mom to her parents' house, His dad would sometimes use his free time to take him downtown for a bowl of noodles that cost 1.5 yuan. Back then, his dad wasn't addicted to gambling, his parents weren't divorced yet, and his grandparents didn't despise him. King Chin stood quietly, watching a roadside noodle stall. That 1.5 yuan from back then has turned into 15 yuan now. Everything feels like it can never go back to how it was. Finally, he turned away and headed toward the school gate. King Chin glanced suspiciously at a group of thugs in a corner when suddenly a voice pulled his consciousness back to reality. "Brother!" The little girl ran over happily and said, "Let's go home, brother. Mom is almost done cooking." He gently rubbed his sister's head. "What if I still have evening classes? You and Mom go ahead and eat. Don't wait for me." But that didn't stop Dong Yun, because she knew King Chin's schedule perfectly well. He hadn't attended evening classes for several days now. As soon as she finished speaking, his little sister pulled his hand and led him home. The sight that greeted him was a newly renovated room and a table full of hot food. Most of the old worn-out utensils were gone. Everything seemed to have been replaced with new items. Zhang Zhuk was cooking in the kitchen and heard the noise at the door. "Is that you, King Chin? Come on and sit down. Just this last pot of soup left." King Chin didn't answer but just lowered his head to look at the dining table. "Looks delicious. Compared to the bland food in prison number 18, this could truly be called a real meal." He turned to Zhang Zhuk and asked, "Ms. Zhang Zhe, what exactly are we celebrating today?" Coincidentally, as she carried the pot of soup out of the kitchen, she said, "You told me before that you opened a machinery repair shop in the inner world, right?" Zhang Zhuk set the final dish on the table and talked about the situation at the shop. "That shop was scaring me to death. Because when we transmigrate there, we don't inherit the original memories, so when people came to the door for repairs, I didn't know what to do. Those people coming to get their equipment fixed, everyone was so fierce. Plus, the night security in city number 18 is terrible. The streets aren't safe after 8 o'clock at night, so I was always worried." Even so, she felt that this business was a blessing in disguise, though she didn't know why this time. When she transmigrated there, people from the Lie Corporation suddenly showed up at her little shop, saying they wanted to invest in it. This eliminated many of the dangers for Jiangshu's repair shop. In that inner world, the corporations are like gods. As long as a business is backed by a corporation, those criminal elements will avoid them. Not only did they give her a sum of money, they even swapped her sign for one with the Lie Corporation's logo. After that, she was much safer in the inner world. King Chin fell into deep thought after hearing all this information. The Lie Corporation. He seemed to think of something regarding the Lees, but outwardly, he just offered congratulations. "That's certainly something to celebrate." Zhang Zhuk smiled brightly. "This time I won't have to trouble you anymore. Little Yoon's grandparents won't have to leave their hometown either." She could finally repay King Chin now. "Didn't you say you really admired transmigrators before? If one day you transmigrate to city number 18, just come and find me. Other things, Ms. Zhang Shui might not be able to do, but I can at least protect you." He didn't respond, but thought to himself that he was indeed already in city number 18. But unfortunately, his situation wasn't something an ordinary person could help with. The power struggle between the candidates for the shadow role of the Night Organization, just those two things alone are already beyond the comprehension of an average transmigrator. Contran asked casually while eating, "Oh right, Zhang Zhe, did that person in black come looking for you earlier?" She replied calmly that they hadn't come for her, but she had gone to find them. Zhang Shui wanted to seek help from their organization after handing Xiao Yun over to you. She had wanted to contact them to see if they could provide any assistance while she was in the inner world. It's just that they said their organization was newly established and hadn't gained a foothold in the inner world yet, so even if they wanted to help, they couldn't. After finishing her meal, she went to the kitchen to clean up. Contran walked out to the living room and sat down next to Dong Yun. "You're a transmigrator too, aren't you?" Dong Yun, who was halfway through a bag of snacks, froze at his question. "What are you talking about, Brother Contran?" He stated his suspicions directly. "Last time, I specifically asked for the name of your mother's repair shop, and it just so happens that the Lie Group comes to invest. Plus, they are very protective of her. You don't have to admit it, but I could just share this clue with your mother." The girl panicked and blocked him. "Absolutely not! You can't tell Mom!" She shrank away under his piercing gaze. "My guess wasn't wrong, which is why I used that one-time trade opportunity yesterday. I pulled the list of the Li conglomerate's members from Li Shutong, and sure enough, the name Li Dongyun was on it. Contran was deeply curious. Why not let her know? Dongyun hung her head and whispered, "In the inner world, there aren't many people who dare to lecture me. But if Mom finds out, she will definitely lecture me in both worlds." She turned around abruptly, trying to bribe him. "Don't tell Mom and I'll give you money." "I have a lot of money in the inner world," he shrugged, brushing her off. "I'm not a transmigrator. What would I need money there for?" Dongyun looked at him skeptically. "You're not a transmigrator?" Contran kept his expression relaxed. Obviously not. Deep down, he wasn't nearly as calm as he looked. "As I thought, this brat was suspicious of me because I'm always asking around. Good thing I turned down that money quickly." The atmosphere suddenly fell silent. Contran thought for a moment and decided to change the subject. "How much money do you have in the outer world?" Dongyun was shocked. "You're even trying to scam a kid out of their money?" He replied dismissively. "I just asked out of curiosity." Surprisingly, she seriously suggested, "I don't have much here in the outer world, Brother Contran. Why don't we change to a different condition?" He looked at her and blurted out, "What kind of condition?" Dongyun helplessly buried her face in her teddy bear. "How would I know? Regardless, you are not to tell Mom." Contran stood up and reminded her one last time. "Fine, just remember this agreement. Make sure to take care of your mom in the inner world. I hear from people that things are pretty chaotic in there." Dongyun giggled. Don't worry. When you get the chance to transmigrate to the inner world, I'll protect both of you." Seeing her like this, he felt a bit more at ease. Contran left Dongyun's place, and a while later, he sat on his bed, muttering, "Overall, I gained something tonight. At the very least, I confirmed that Li Dongyun is a transmigrator. Now that I'm in the race for the shadow position, having one more ally is better than none." His brows furrowed as he read the new information on his phone. A mysterious overseas organization is offering high prices for cybernetic body parts, future tech items from the inner world, and anti-aging products, such as the E002 gene serum. Note: these drugs have not yet been researched or tested in the outer world, yet they are all known to save lives and extend longevity. They maintain youth and enhance physical performance. Our organization has tested the efficacy of these drugs and found that they are effective on humans in the outer world. Usage instructions: dissolve the encapsulated pill or swallow directly. Contran sneered at their methods. To smuggle items out of the inner world, this organization is using such extreme tactics. I knew clearly that all these schemes were driven by money. If a wealthy person is dying of cancer, their only hope is a life-saving drug from the inner world, then they would be willing to pay any price. And what price is worth more than life itself? This was their goal. He put down the phone and sat in deep thought. While he was still figuring out how to become a transcendent, others had already started this business. If he wanted to deliver real goods, he would definitely expose his identity, but he couldn't use that method right now. Of course, he could use a USB drive to copy technical data, but could an average transmigrator even get close to the core technology of the inner world? Maybe in the future, but right now, there's no one like that. After weighing his options, the best move for now was still to get closer to Li Shutong. He's still in prison number 18 as of now. Even getting news from the outside is hard enough as it is, so the most important thing right now is to build a good relationship with Li Shutong. Suddenly, Contran noticed something. Wait, the more he read, the more his face twisted. This mysterious organization is also buying cybernetic body parts? A few days ago, someone had their legs stolen, and now this group is offering a high price to buy them. I'm afraid that this will only embolden criminals to target transmigrators even more. Thinking back to those thugs near the wall by the school, he couldn't help but peek through the curtains to check the area. But they were already gone. The two of them had left. A bad premonition stirred in King Chen's heart, so he called the police. "Hello? I'm at the Building 12 in District 4, Hangshu Road. I saw two suspicious men near my place this evening. I get the feeling they're up to no good." Suddenly, a sharp scream rang out from upstairs. His scalp tightened, realizing it was Li Dongyun's voice. His voice rushed, urging the police on the other end to send officers immediately. "Please, hurry! Thank you!" His eyes locked onto the ceiling. They were targeting Shangsha. King Chen jumped up to find a weapon. He grabbed a medium-sized shovel from the shelf, his heart filled with overwhelming fear. Terrified to the point of turning pale, he realized these were two grown men, maybe even more. King Chen trembled as he pushed open his door. Could he actually deal with this? The hand holding the shovel was shaking just as much, but King Chin couldn't just walk away. He wasn't a saint, and he was quite selfish. Even in prison 18, he had watched friends suffer and ignored them. He had acted like he didn't see it even when they were scared out of their minds. He was determined to rush out the door to find Jiang Shu, but he just couldn't stand by and watch a child like Li Tongyun fall into the hands of bad people. Soon, King Chin arrived and swung the shovel, knocking the man down. The large body collapsed onto the stairs. Jiang Zhuk stood by the door, her whole body trembling, watching as he lifted his head to check on the two of them. She softly whispered, "Thank you." Across the staircase, King Chin asked, "Was there only one?" Shonguk took 2 steps down and replied, "There was another, but he ran away." He didn't forget to ask about the little girl. "Is Xiaoyun okay? She must be terrified." Then, he sprinted to find the other guy. "I've already called the police." "Go check on Xiaoyun," she called after him. But it was too late. Reaching the ground floor, King Chin saw the man running to the left. Knowing the terrain well, he immediately took a shortcut to the right. If his predictions were correct, he could cut him off on this path. King Chin agilely jumped over a wall and slowly crept toward the edge of the wall, waiting for him. His eyes focused on the street, shovel ready in position. King Chin held his breath, counting down in his head. 3, 2. He had caught the guy in his sights. 1. King Chin swung the shovel with all his might, hitting the man's leg square on. Losing his balance, the man collapsed, crying out in bone-shattering pain, "Ah! Ah! Ah!" He used this moment to run back home. Shonghuk and Tongyun were waiting outside the door. The little girl cried out to him, "Brother! There was another one, but he got away." I gave her a gentle, reassuring smile. "Don't worry, I caught him." Shonghuk looked at King Chin's hand with concern. "Your hand is torn. Wait here, let me get some bandages and disinfectant." She told herself that it was a relief he wasn't more seriously hurt. It was just a scrape. His attitude toward himself was one of self-loathing. He was, after all, just an ordinary person, except for the fact that he possessed a superhuman brain, yet lacked a body to match it. He silently declined her kindness. "Don't bother her. I have those things at my place, too. The police will be here soon. I'm going back home." King Chin forced a stiff smile. "Please remember tonight, I didn't do anything at all." Jiang Zhuk didn't quite understand, but she respected his wish. All right. He turned and headed back to his room. It seemed he really needed to speed up his cultivation in the inner world. The next morning, as dawn broke, a loud voice called out from outside his door, "Brother King Chen!" Li Tongyun, with tears streaming down her face, pushed the door open. "Brother King Chen, please help my mom!" Upon reaching their place, he found Jiang Zhuk explaining that the power armor had run out of energy. King Chen calmly pushed the door open and remarked, "Their durability is quite poor, isn't it? How on earth did people in the inner world sustain such high-intensity combat?" She summarized their energy needs. The inner world had already perfected energy upgrades and wireless charging. Appliances at home were always in a state of charging. This paid energy system was managed very strictly. Everyone had a payment ID just like a national ID card. You just had to pay every month to enjoy the convenience. The financial consortium would calculate fees based on everyone's power usage. King Chin used his brilliant brain to analyze this. Shoga had told him, in the inner world, there were Lingning towers everywhere to produce energy and Wanliu towers to transport it. Even in the wilderness, there were a few Wanliu towers. But because transportation in the wilderness usually relied on combustion engines, especially for the military, engines required a lot of energy. The high torque was better suited for specialized military vehicles and long-distance transport. Thinking about it from different angles, there were difficulties. But in reality, because the smugglers were so aggressive, getting out of the city was a huge hassle. You had to pass through customs built by the tax authority and verify that you had all the proper identification papers. The financial authorities in the inner world played a massive role, possessing not just enforcement agencies, but their own intelligence services as well. He sank into thought for a moment, weighing all the factors of the inner world. But among all the information from today, the most valuable piece was, the hard currency in the inner world is gold. A strong currency is one that lenders are willing to accept for payment, unlike the local fiat currency issued by the financial consortium. They issue cash based on their gold reserves. At this, the corners of his mouth curled up involuntarily. Finally, he knew how to make money in the inner world. Getting back to the point, Contron asked bluntly. So, little Van, why did you call me? What do you need my help with? Jong Tuet replied, relaxing her arm. It was out of energy, mostly because her hand had ended up like this. I can't cook for little Van today. She quietly asked for his help. Could you please take care of her for me? The little girl, holding her empty stomach, looked at him and said, Brother Contron, can you cook something for me and my mom? I'm hungry. He thought it was some huge deal, but he replied, That's no problem. Suddenly there was a knock at the door, followed by a man's voice greeting them. Hello, is anyone home? Contron? He caught sight of a strange car parked next to the building's window. It was an off-road vehicle from that mysterious organization. He adjusted his apron and walked straight into the kitchen. Little Van, go open the door for our guests. I'll go cook for you and your mom. The little girl excitedly ran to open the door. Thank you, Brother Contron. There were several figures outside. Lo Vien grinned, extending his hand toward Jong Tuet. Hello, I am Lo Vien. We've met before, the people from Koluan. Contron opened the fridge to get food, but he didn't miss a single word. Koluan? So their organization is called Koluan. Jong Tuet warmly welcomed them. Please take a seat. Little Van, go pour some water for the guests. As soon as he sat down, Lo Vien asked, What happened to your hand? The answer was the same as before. The armor plating has run out of power. He lowered his voice and ordered the secretary tagging along, Write that down. Listening from afar, he understood quite a bit. It seemed they didn't even know that the armor plating could run out of power. Perhaps they were just like what? Jong Tuet said that this organization was only recently established. So, they didn't know much about the world inside. Dong Van brought over 2 glasses of water. As her mother was chatting, she asked, What did you two come here for? Lo Vien didn't want to beat around the bush. We want to ask about something. He brought up what happened yesterday, sounding like he was cross-examining. Last night, 2 bad guys, after escaping your place, one of them was ambushed and had his leg broken. The words investigation echoed in his ears, making Contron feel nervous. Do you know who did it? Lo Vien smiled, whispering to Jong Tuet, Don't worry, we aren't here to hold you legally responsible. We're just looking to understand the situation a bit better. Lo Vien and his teammate sat across from Jong Tuet and Dong Van. The teammate sitting next to Lo Vien kept scratching away on paper. The rustling sound was constant. Jong Tuet, with a worried look, said, I don't know who did it either. Maybe someone was just being a good Samaritan. Why are you guys investigating this anyway? She said that with her mouth. But in her heart, she had already made up her mind. No matter what, she couldn't let anyone investigate Contron, because he was just venting his anger to help her daughter. Lo Vien noticed she was lost in thought, and spoke up to reassure her. Don't misunderstand. We aren't law enforcement, so we don't intend to do anything to this good Samaritan. The serious-looking teammate with glasses added, That's right. It's just that according to what that guy said, we saw that this person acted very skillfully, and the timing of the ambush was not something an ordinary person could pull off. That's why we wanted to find him and see if he's a traveler or not. We just want to learn more about the strange events happening lately. Just then, Dong Van opened her eyes wide and spoke in that clear, characteristic child's voice, lying without blinking. After what happened yesterday, Mom and I were both at home. We didn't go out, so we don't know who did it. Contron, wearing his apron, hid behind the door, hearing everything. He pondered. At this moment, Lai Dong Van's explanation would be even more convincing, because, subconsciously, people assume children don't lie. He remembered the similarity between himself and the little girl. Their upbringing was the same. Both had parents who fought, both experienced domestic violence. His intuition told him that she and he were the same type of person, the kind who, beneath a calm exterior, hides a fierce, inner, violent nature. Dong Van's eyes dropped, and from deep within them, a sense of utter sadness and disappointment emerged. Mister, that good person who helped my mom and me. Why do you guys want to find him? Is it to arrest them? Are you guys the bad guys? Seeing the little girl start to doubt them, Lo Vien hurriedly rested his hands on the table and gave a faint smile to explain to Dong Van, No, little one, don't misunderstand. He calmly explained his purpose for coming. We don't have any bad intentions. Because the Koluan organization was just founded, we need to find and gather talented people with the same ideals. He added more information for Jong Tuet, while also warning her. Also, There is indeed another organization in the inner world, along with a few financial conglomerates that have discovered the existence of the outer world. According to our statistics, there are currently 21 travelers who have died under strange circumstances. Before they died, they had to endure interrogation and torture. There are also over 10 travelers who say they were locked up by an organization in the inner world. I hope you, Ms. Jang Tuet, can be on high alert. Don't let them find you. She listened intently to his words. Little Dongvan just stared blankly at her mother. Lovian reached his hand out toward her. Although these were all secret actions, it was enough to tell us that once your identity is exposed, it will be very dangerous. Jang Tuet heard this, and her eyebrows furrowed in worry. All right, I understand. She sighed inwardly. So being exposed in the inner world is that dangerous. Suddenly, the assistant beside him held up his phone and announced, Tutu has appeared again. Lovian was a bit surprised. Suddenly, Dongvan asked him, Mister, who is that brother Tutu? I see he knows so many things. Lovian, still holding the phone, asked the little girl, Little one, do you know about Tutu too? We're actually looking for this guy too. It's just that he's incredibly good at hiding. Even now, we have no idea who he is. Logically, he should have left some kind of trace, right? But now every trace of him has been wiped clean. Mid-sentence, Lovian and his colleague abruptly stood up to say their goodbyes, saying, You've talked enough. We won't bother you two any longer. I'll be going now. Jang Tuet sat in her chair, gently seeing them off, saying, I'm not mobile enough to walk you out. He waved his hand generously. No need, no need. But at the door, Lovian's eyes suddenly widened. Looking at the simple black sneakers by the threshold, he asked, Hey, whose sneakers are those left by the door? Jang Tuet and Dongvan replied in turn, They're my husband's, and those are my dad's. Lovian muttered, Oh, my apologies, and then quietly closed the door and left. Seeing the two gone, mother and daughter slumped onto the sofa, sighing with relief as if they had narrowly escaped a disaster. Tran stepped out calmly. I'm sorry for causing you two trouble. Dongvan gave a big thumbs up, signaling that everything was fine. Jang Tuet sat nearby, smiling. Don't say that. It's the two of us who caused you trouble. If my daughter and I hadn't had this issue, we wouldn't have needed to drag you into it. Looking at the sweet potatoes he had prepped and set by the sink, she asked, Did the fridge run out of food? Then go buy some more. Buy some ribs. You and Dongvan are growing. You need to eat more meat. Wait for me a moment. Let me have Dongvan get you some money. A while later, Tran stepped out to the threshold. He bent down to put on his shoes. Once out of the apartment, he scanned his surroundings carefully but didn't spot Lovian's car parked nearby. He peered through the crowd. Tran's face came into view. They both intently watched his movements. The car had been parked there for a long time, but he showed no intention of leaving to run errands. Lovian lit a cigarette, taking a drag, the white smoke swirling around the tip. It's not him, his colleague sitting next to him asked, confused. You know for a fact someone is in that room. They seem to be hiding from us, so why not just barge in and see? We put too much effort into this mission, he replied, never taking his eyes off Tran for a second. Boss Dang also gave orders. The Kunlun organization is newly formed. We need to build connections with the Transcenders. It's not about using force. Besides, not every Transcender gets accepted. Kunlun isn't exactly taking in just anyone either. He's acting so calm. Anyone who doesn't know might think he's making a mistake, but this is actually a smart long-term move. If we want to do something later, we can't force people who aren't on the same page. We have to wait here. If it doesn't work out, so be it. A new era has already begun. Some people are destined to be extraordinary. Perhaps we don't need to go looking for them. They will appear on their own. Tran had arrived at the supermarket to buy groceries. With one hand carrying his bags and the other scrolling through his phone, he pondered as he walked. During his conversation with Jang Tuet, Lovian had revealed quite a bit of information. Even Kunlun didn't know Tutu's identity, and he hadn't been fooled by Kunlun either. He scrolled through the social media web pages. In an era with such developed internet, erasing every single trace of oneself is fundamentally extremely difficult. Tutu must have access to technology or perhaps supernatural, time-defying abilities, something that people from the outside world could not fathom. Tutu called the Transcenders time travelers, because when they entered the inner world, time in the outside world would freeze. When they returned, time in the inner world would stop. For now, these time travelers were concentrated in 19 cities, namely Wu City, Capital City, Nan City, Lo City, Chuan City, Chung City, Shen City, Kun City, and Hai City. Kai City, Tong City, Hang City, Fu City, Guang City, Lan City, Han City, Hu City, Shin City, and Tai City. In other areas, a few time travelers might appear, but the probability is very low. According to Tutu, if you want to become a time traveler, you should get to these 19 cities quickly, because the third wave of time travelers will arrive tonight. Since the inner world game is extremely difficult, he felt that time travelers operating in groups would have a higher survival rate. Finally, Tutu gave a warning. Absolutely do not reveal your identity. He guessed. He suspected that Tutu must have known that some time travelers had been exposed, and that they had met a miserable end, which was why he was reminding everyone. He stopped at the meat counter, pointing to the piece he wanted to buy, his mind never stopping for a second. But not every time traveler is that smart. In prison number 18, there is a threat like that guy Lu Duke, who couldn't withstand the interrogation. The butcher chopped the meat into pieces, put them in a plastic bag, and handed them to him. It's just that it was unexpected for Tutu to treat the inner world like a game, but it can be predicted that, since he is the most famous time traveler, this public post will surely cause a massive stir, perhaps even using one person's strength to drive the eager masses of transcenders to quickly gather in the 19 cities mentioned in that post. However, one thing worried him. The matter of the inner world had indeed produced quite a few scammers. Contron picked up his phone again. Namkan Than had sent him a barrage of messages. In the Transcender group, someone was selling the elixir of immortality, researched by Shu Fu. It wasn't even expensive, and they were selling it in bulk. Back in the day, Qin Shi Huang sent Shu Fu, carrying 3,000 children, but he couldn't pull it off. Now you can buy it just by spending a little money. Contran messaged back, "How can you be sure this is real? Besides, Tufuk is from this side. What does that have to do with the inner world?" Namkan Than replied in such a naive way. He claimed he was Tufuk, and said that back then, he didn't go to the island nation, but instead time traveled along with those 3,000 children. You were left speechless. As long as you're happy, I guess. Contran shoved his phone into his pocket and picked up the bag of Liangshang meat, thinking to himself, sometimes I really can't tell if Namkan Than is playing dumb or if he's genuinely that oblivious. For now. The countdown was down to 13 hours, 8 minutes, and 19 seconds. When he returned to the building, you couldn't see Lo Vian's car anymore. It seems Madame Luan's people had finally left. Thanks to Contran's skilled hands, the food looked sparkling and mouth-watering. Just looking at it made you hungry. Dongvan picked up a piece of meat to feed Jiang Tuit, and she too smiled as she took a bite. Looking at the harmonious scene before you, you thought about how someone as fragile as Jiang Tuit could become so strong just to protect her child. Lai Dongvan believed that in this time travel trip, she would get the best prosthetic parts for her mom. Thinking of that, you felt a little bittersweet. You really only have yourself to rely on. Suddenly, Jiang Tuit asked you, "Xiaotran, I rarely see your parents around. Are they very busy?" You replied briefly, "Yeah, probably." Knowing your situation, she suggested, "I noticed the washing machine at your place is broken. The two of us are so close anyway. From now on, just bring your laundry over for me to wash. Don't be a stranger. And after school, don't bother cooking. Just come eat at my place." Jiang Tuit offered that gentle, kind-hearted, motherly smile of hers. "Even if you don't come, I'm cooking for Dongvan anyway. It's just adding one more pair of chopsticks." Contran bowed his head, feeling a bit touched. "Yeah, okay. Thank you, Ms. Jiang Tuit." The clock struck 11:59 at night. A full, bright moon shone into Contran's room. You lay silently on the bed, thinking that you were getting more and more used to this time travel thing. You closed your eyes as the space around you began to shatter. If someone asked you to choose only one world to survive in, perhaps you would choose the inner world. A strange string of numbers appeared. 010101. The sound of prisoners screaming in despair echoed out. "Is anyone there? Let me out!" Contran lay still in his room, hands behind his head. The screaming kept echoing. "Where is this? Let me out! What right do you have to arrest me? Do you even know who my father is?" Hearing that, you chuckled. Contran mocked. Looks like a newbie, huh? Welcome to prison number 18. It was 2 in the afternoon in the inner world. Contran sat in silence, calculating. You stared at your arm. The countdown on your arm didn't stop. This countdown was for 7 days. You frowned in thought. Why is that? Is there a pattern? It seems I have to keep digging into the rules of this time traveling. Contran walked outside calmly. Everyone secretly avoided your gaze. You looked toward Lo Kuang-nia. He smiled and gave you a signal. There was a commotion in the distance. Welcome, newbie. Contran thought to himself, even though Lo Kuang-nia doing that will anger the other two factions, sooner or later, a conflict is bound to break out. You pondered, but he entered prison number 18 to pave the way for me. A pawn being sacrificed must have the resolve of a sacrifice. Once you step forward, there is no turning back. Success means life. Failure means death. Glory must be exchanged with one's own life. Besides, Thuk Dong tacitly accepted Lo Kuang-nia's actions. It seemed he wanted to know what your intentions were. Contran looked around. Today, there were 7 new prisoners. As Lo Kuang-nia was rounding them up, 6 of them looked like they were being arrested for the second time. Choosing to accept their fate, the experienced prisoners understood well that it was best to just keep quiet and endure it. If you resisted, things would only get more painful. You watched the scene of Lo Kuang-nia grabbing the prisoners. But as Lo Kuang-nia was grabbing the last prisoner, that guy kept trying to run away. But this prisoner didn't have any prosthetic parts on him at all. With a normal human physique, how could he possibly escape from a beast of iron and steel? The prisoner screamed, "Don't hit me! Why are you catching me? Let me go!" Another one threatened, "Don't you dare mess with me! A single slap from me will send you straight to the haunted house." The rest of them murmured, "What is this guy saying? Do you understand?" Roughly, but not entirely. Contran looked down quietly. That was a local dialect from Shuyan Chao. This guy was a time traveler. You were puzzled. But why did this guy time travel to prison number 18? According to the rules that you and Tutu had summarized, there are only 19 cities in the entire country where transmigrators are concentrated. Furthermore, it seems a transmigrator can only transmigrate to one specific location, which is why the people from Luo City all ended up here. You stop and wonder, could there be a flaw in your own summary? Can the location of a trans-dimensional crossing change? That doesn't seem right. There must be a special case. Shu Tung orders his men to grab him and interrogate him thoroughly, including mentioning the names Liu Deju and Huang Tiezian. He mutters to himself, I have a feeling they all arrived at the same place. King Chen feels anxious. If the other side isn't a complete idiot, they could easily piece things together from these strange occurrences. Consecutive incidents. It's only a matter of time before people from the inner world find out about the outer world, because there are simply too many transmigrators now. You deduce that this guy speaking the local dialect must have triggered Shu Tong to piece together all the weird events that have been happening lately. Lin Xiaoxiu suddenly freezes. King Chen watches Yewan with increased caution this time. Hai doesn't. Just sit back anymore. He lets Lin Xiaoxiu take charge. Lin Xiaoxiu pushes Lu Kuangyi aside. Move. Leave him to me. He refuses, saying, our boss has to give the green light first. People around them are whispering constantly, isn't Lu Guangyi the boss? Why is there another boss? So it turns out King Chen isn't just some lucky kid who happened to get acquainted. Shu Tong, he himself is a true powerhouse. Yet the guy surnamed King is actually the boss of Lu Guangyi from the Qing Consortium. Lin Xiaoxiu applauds, you're tough, daring to step in even after knowing my boss's identity. Not bad. King Chen watches in silence as the prisoner is knocked out. Lin Xiaoxiu casually drags the prisoner away. King Chen is stunned. Shu Tong's people can actually let someone roam freely inside prison number 18? He ponders, but if he can move around freely, why hasn't he left this place? A lazy cat yawns in front of the chessboard. King Chen wonders where Lin Xiaoxiu went. Shu Tong replies, something unexpected happened, though I still don't know what it is yet. He shares, but it's definitely something beyond my imagination. In the past, if someone with a mysterious background appeared around me, I'd suspect someone was plotting to get something from me. But not this time. The other side doesn't have a plan at all. It's like they have no brain. King Chen thinks, time is running out. Not to mention that fellow transmigrator. Just this Liu Deju alone won't be able to withstand Lin Xiaoxiu's interrogation. Lin Xiaoxiu even has the mysterious nightmare ability. This kind of power will make people involuntarily blurt out the truth. The exposure of the outer world is inevitable, and it's going to happen fast, too. Guo Hutian is stuffing his face frantically. Ye Wan quickly advises him. Don't just eat. Wasn't that person just now one of your men? I heard those wild lands have places where they speak that strange language. Guo Hutian wipes his mouth. Not my guy. That kid doesn't look like someone from the wildlands. Have you ever seen a wildling with such fair skin? He replies, fair point. Guo Hutian laughs. All our people have been found by this brother Qingchen. Don't worry, right now I'm basically a lone wolf. He speaks up, by the way. Can you give some meat to my 3 brothers? Yuan replies, are you short on meat in the wildlands? Hutian sighs. Every 2 or 3 days we get raided by conglomerate forces. Where would we find the time to raise livestock? Plus, there are 2 forbidden zones there now. It almost cost us lives. The living space isn't as vast as you guys think. He tries to butter him up. Of course, if brother Qingchen comes along then, everything you eat will be on you. Qingchen glances at Guo Hutian. Forbidden zone, another new term. It seems like it has something to do with that forbidden object. He familiarly throws an arm around his shoulder. Brother Qingchen, how about you come with me to the wildlands? I won't promise anything else, but for a talent like you can have whatever you want. Whatever you want to eat, you shall have. Shu Tung strokes the kitten and smiles. Are you really that set on poaching him? Don't you see? He's a King Consortium man. Being a loyal shadow for the Qings, is that really worse than your wildlands? Guo Hutian retorts, how can you compare the two? Guo Hutian retorted, how can they possibly be the same? Whether he actually becomes the shadow is still up in the air. The selection process is just too dangerous. Why even risk it in the first place? Following me to the wilderness isn't so bad, and it's certainly not that dangerous, Shu Tong said with a mocking sneer. What could the wilderness possibly have to offer you? On what grounds do you expect people to follow you? Qingchen spoke up. That's just a pie in the sky you're painting for everyone. You glance at the time. Lin Xiaoxiao will be back soon. Qingchen thought to himself that he was about to face the most dangerous test of his life, and he didn't have a single card to play. He pondered, knowing exactly what he was up against, but there was no way out. Qingchen felt bleak, with nowhere to hide. The clock struck 15:30. Inside the interrogation room, the new prisoner hadn't woken up yet, leaving Lin Xiaoxiao feeling helpless. This kid has been cursing me out non-stop, from his dreams to reality for over half an hour, and he hasn't even repeated a single insult. In interrogation room B, he looked over the results and smiled with satisfaction. Not a bad haul this time. This guy, Lu Di, claims he's a high school student who transmigrated from a parallel world, and that his place of origin is La City? There are a lot of transmigrators there. It's just that they all transmigrate randomly. Before doing so, no one knows where they'll end up, Lin Xiaoxiao mused. Though there's one thing to keep in mind, Lu Di. You said he approached the boss because someone told him that finding Shu Tong at prison number 18 would lead to a career break. We need to find out who leaked this information. Lin Xiaoxiao recalled that even though this transmigration stuff sounded unbelievable, based on what Lu Di confessed, it was logically consistent and worth thinking about. Suddenly, he slammed the table, startling Lu Di awake. One last question, he smiled sinisterly. Have you ever heard a song called Farewell? At dinner, everyone ate in silence. Qingchen thought to himself that while Lin Xiaoxiao was smart and sharp, he wasn't the type to be calculatingly cold-blooded. He returned to the table without mentioning the interrogation results. The conclusion was already clear. There was a secret involving someone sitting right here. Qingchen surmised that the person was likely himself. He looked at Shu Tong, wondering how he would handle this. A man with the power to control everything as he did wouldn't let things spiral out of control, no matter how much personal affection he might have had before. When standing before someone in a position of power, those things don't matter. Shu Tong put down his chopsticks and ordered, Xiaoxiao, take the Black Spade brothers somewhere else. Lin Xiaoxiao replied, understood. He gestured for Guo Hutian to follow, but he stubbornly refused to budge. I'm not going anywhere. Sound caught Guo Hutian's attention. He had been struck hard. He rubbed his injury as he heard Lin Xiaoxiao say, if you still want to stay here looking for the forbidden object S005, don't take another step. Guo Hutian was annoyed. Fine, if I can't listen, I won't listen. Shu Tung questioned. So you let Lu Guangyai interrogate the newcomers these past few days because you wanted to find them? Qingchen replied. That's right. He gave a look of approval. You're much calmer than I expected. When I was your age, I wasn't even close to being this composed. Qingchen answered calmly. It's not composure. It's that being nervous is useless. Even if Xiaoxiao didn't tell me the result, I know for sure there's some big secret. Whenever facing uncontrollable situations, they never show mercy. Shu Tong asked back, Have you ever thought that he's ominous? That you might not survive past tomorrow? King Chin glanced at him, then at the prisoners and the machinery around him, all moving as part of one massive, terrifying system. King Chin admitted, "I've thought about it." He smiled. "Living together these past few days has actually been quite pleasant. If I could, I'd still hope we could get to know each other again." Shu Tong spoke. "The first time I played chess with you, you won, so I still owe you a favor. Whatever you want, tell me now." King Chin's request made him pause. "Could you play farewell again?" He wondered. "You're not using it to save your life?" He pondered. "My life doesn't need to be traded, and it couldn't be traded anyway." Shu Tong accepted. "Very well. I've always liked your spirit. Consider this song a gift. As for that favor, you can ask me whenever you want." He gently picked up the instrument, and the melodic music echoed throughout the prison. King Chin listened with delight. "Thank you." In the dead of night, the prison was silent. Footsteps stopped in front of King Chin's cell. Someone covered his head with a black bag, while two others handled escorting him away. I was dumped in an unknown place as the door slowly closed. King Chin woke up gradually and sighed. In the pitch-black space, he had no idea where he was. He couldn't speak to anyone, and he didn't even know what time it was. Loneliness and fear seemed to swallow him whole. He thought to himself, but in truth, he wasn't afraid of being alone. Ever since he found out his parents were divorcing, he had made friends with loneliness. King Chin licked his lips. Dehydration was his greatest enemy now. He looked at the time on his arm. Even though the countdown didn't do much, at least it helped him keep track of time. King Chin sighed and entered his own theater, looking up at the big screen. Since there was nothing he could do, he might as well watch a movie. A prison break theme fits our current situation perfectly, so let's watch The Shawshank Redemption. You stare at the countdown, feeling frustrated and stretched out. You've already replayed 8 movies in your head. You even managed to doze off for a bit, but that didn't stop the hunger and thirst. Still, you haven't reached your limit yet. The countdown reads 98 hours, 9 minutes, and 1 second. Contron thinks to himself, the revolving lantern scenes. Your head is starting to spin, your body alternating between hot and cold, and your skin is cracking. This must be due to severe dehydration. You're restless and can't sleep. The hunger is unbearable. It feels like your spirit is being slowly eroded away. The time keeps ticking down. 74 hours, 9 minutes, and 1 second. In the quiet of the night, Kwang Nia screams like a madman, "Li Shutung, let me out of this dark room right now. Where are you hiding, my boss?" "Kwang Nia won't forgive you! The Khan family won't forgive you either!" Lam Tutu turns back to look at the display screen, which shows 0000. He speaks up, "Boss, it's been 4 days." He whispers, "Boss, Contran has been in there for 4 days already. He hasn't said a single word, and there's no sign of him breaking." Li Shutong replies, "He is extremely intelligent. From the very first day, he started regulating his breathing to minimize fluid loss. Surviving 4 days isn't anything special." Lam Tutu argues, "But even so, to go 4 days without a single word is rare. He doesn't look like he's being tortured, he looks like he's waiting. But he hasn't had water in 4 days. If he doesn't drink, he's going to die. Boss, you value talent. Spare him." Deep Van also quickly tries to intervene. "Boss, perhaps the dark room won't work on him. Let him go. Release him." Li Shutong speaks up. "Switch to water torture." Lam Tutu is shocked. "Boss! He's severely dehydrated. If he gets water now, he'll gulp it down." "If that happens," Tutu warns, "Cantren will die." Li Shutong says coldly, "Living or dying is his choice. If he hasn't seen true death, how can he follow my path?" Contran is tied tightly to the chair, his entire face covered by a white cloth. Lam Tutu stands to the side, deep in thought, watching Diep Van pour water over Contran's face. He trembles, clenching his fists, determined not to open his mouth to say a single word. Water keeps pouring over Contran, yet he stubbornly endures it in silence. Tutu observes from the side, deeply impressed. He never expected that even at this point, Contran could still maintain his clarity. Does he even know what he is facing? Does he know that he is using his final ounce of willpower to buy a chance at survival? The water surges again. Contran feels as though his whole body is sinking into the vast, endless ocean. Suddenly, Contran hears a voice calling, "Little Tran." He jolts awake, his eyes opening as memories from the past flood his mind. A scene of his mother holding his hand. She says to him tenderly, "Little Tran, your father is different now. He doesn't need us anymore. At that time, Cantran sees a candy hawker on the side of the road and immediately calls out, "Mom, I want a candied hawthorn stick." Uyen Fuang bites her lip, looking at the little boy with teary eyes. She replies, "Okay, Mom will go buy you a candied hawthorn stick now." Young Contron happily takes the stick from his mother's hand, but he doesn't notice that her hand is trembling uncontrollably. Afterward, Uyen Fuang hides herself in the crowd, leaving Contron with a message, "Little Tran, stay here and eat, okay? Mom is going to the restroom for a minute." Contran, still oblivious, stands there eating his candy and waiting for his mother to return. But as time passes, the bright sun fades into the twilight. His mother never returns. Heavy rain begins to fall, and the candied hawthorn stick falls to the ground at some point. Contran stands there, his body shivering from the cold. He covers his face and sobs, his tears mixing with the rain. A guard sees him and tries to pull him under an umbrella. Yet Contran still shakes his head, refusing to leave. Suddenly, a woman runs over. It is Uyen Fuang. She runs to hug him, and the mother and child cry in the rain. Contran seems to have understood everything. So he had been abandoned. Back in reality, his heart aches as if thousands of thorns are cutting into it. His whole body trembles uncontrollably. In Contran's subconscious, Uyen Fuang turns her back to him and says softly, "Come with Mom." But Contran, now hardened, says, "I don't need to anymore, Mom." A sorrow that cannot be spoken hides in Uyen Fuang's eyes. She gently pleads, "Come with Mom." Contran still replies firmly, "I don't need to anymore." "I told you I don't need it anymore." Returning to reality, he opened his eyes to see Lin Xiaoxiao looking at him with a worried expression. He tried to pat Contran's back firmly to make sure he was fully awake. Then Shu Tong walked over and asked coldly, "Why didn't you beg? I still owe you one request." Contran gasped, trying to inhale as much of the surrounding air as he could, then replied, "Because you all don't need someone weak." Shu Tong was silent, looking at him with a complex gaze. Contran's whole body now contained a power like a fierce wolf. Li Shutong asked again, "Can you forget what I did to you today?" Contran, soaking wet, replied, "I can't forget it, but I don't hold a grudge." Shutong smiled in satisfaction and turned to leave, not forgetting to leave one very honest sentence behind, "Very good. From now on, I will teach you personally. I will take you on the furthest path of all paths in this world." Having said that, Li Shutong walked away leisurely. Xiao Xiao looked at his figure and whispered, "I suppose the boss must be in a very good mood right now. It seems that the boss's generation of knights already has a successor, even though the boss has never mentioned it, seeing him choose one person after another, only for them to fail one by one. The boss must be very anxious. That path is very hard to walk. So hard that neither Yawan nor I want to walk it anymore." Having thought that, he pulled up a chair next to Contran and said happily, "I really admire you. I don't even know how you were able to withstand 4 days in that dark room. After all, at first, we couldn't handle more than 36 hours. Sister Ye is a bit stronger. She lasted 47 hours. Yawan rolled her eyes and asked back, "Just a bit?" Shosho's face darkened from being teased, and he replied, "Stronger by a whole generation, okay?" Contran gasped for breath and asked, "Were you two locked in there too?" Lin Xiaoxiao happily replied, "To normal people, that's torture, but for us, it's just a test. It was mandatory. When the boss told us to throw you into the dark room, I already knew the boss wanted to choose you. It's just that if you didn't pass, he wouldn't care about your life or death. The boss has witnessed too many lives and deaths already. His heart has grown cold too. It's just that he can't help but be cold-hearted. The world is like this, you can't blame him either." Yawan handed a towel to Contran and said, "Wipe your face. There aren't many people who can be as tough as you while enduring the water torture. It's normal for ordinary people to lose control." After that, Lin Xiaoxiao and Yawan even placed a bet on what I would eat tonight. It seems that me passing the water torture didn't just make Li Shutung happy, but it also pleased the two of them. Yawan carried the food tray and said, "Look, someone who can pass the dark room and the water torture isn't stupid enough to eat pork ribs first. No matter how much suffering one has to endure in the outside world, it's nothing compared to what I've been through in these past few days. People my age are still in school, dating and playing games, while I have already started a life I couldn't have foreseen. Even I don't know where I will end up in the end." As the three of them were eating, Lin Xiaoxiao spoke up and asked, "So, after coming here, You didn't even know you were part of the Khan clan, which is why you played chess with the boss to help yourself out. So in reality, you have no connection to the Khan clan whatsoever? And you don't feel like you've come home either? Kantran just replied vaguely, something like that. Lin Xiaoxiu happily replied, that's actually pretty decent. The boss must have considered this too, which is why he decided to accept you. Yewan, sitting nearby, reassured Kantran, you can rest easy, only I, Shosho, and the boss know about your status as an outsider. Even Li Dongze doesn't know. We will keep it a secret for you. Kantran sighed and replied, thanks. Who is this Li Dongze person? Lin Xiaoxiu kept a radiant smile on his lips and happily answered your question. Li Dongze is from the Business Association. The Business Association is an organization under our knights. The influence of the knights is much greater than you think. It seems you don't know much about the outside world, so we'll have to bring you up to speed over the next 2 days. Yawan added, that's right, that guy Lu Guangyi is loyal to you too. He's suffered quite a bit these past few days. He almost got into a fight with the boss. Hearing this, Kantran just replied indifferently. Thanks for the heads up. Do you know Liu Dehua and Huang Tisheng? And that guy Jiansheng who loves to curse? I know those two, Uncle Liu Dei and Huang Tisheng. But I wouldn't call us close friends. They are just my high school classmates. Hearing this, Lin Xiaoxiu excitedly interrupted. Wait a minute. In the outside world, you're just a normal high school student? I actually thought you were some kind of big shot from the outside world. Your skills and your willpower? That's not something an ordinary student would have, Kantran. He replied immediately. The outside world is pretty peaceful. No superheroes, no armored bodies, no secret organizations or political parties. It's very safe. In a world like that, even being a normal person is pretty good since your life isn't in constant danger. Lam Tutu heard this and whispered full of admiration. That sounds amazing. Kantran suddenly remembered something. He looked up and asked where the guy who spoke the local dialect was being held. Can I go and ask him a few questions? Lam Tutu winked playfully and replied, we're all family here. Why wouldn't you be able to? From now on, here at prison number 18, you don't have to worry about a thing. The man was locked up just a few rooms away from the interrogation chamber. Inside the interrogation room, the man held by Diep Van was screaming non-stop, listen here, you! Kantran covered his face and held up a few written lines. When the man saw the words, he asked, are you from Earth too? Kantran didn't answer verbally. He quickly scribbled a few more questions. Are you from Shuyanchou? How did you end up traveling through time to get here? Are you from Lakthan? The man replied irritably, I came to Lakthan for business before. I don't know how the hell I ended up in this dump. Kantran wrote down another question. What is your profession? The man answered, then asked curiously, a bullfighter. Are you from Lakthan too? Upon hearing this, Kantran didn't respond. He turned around and walked out, ignoring the man's shouting in the room. Seeing Kantran walk out, Lam Tutu was surprised and thought to himself, he just made it through the dark room and the water torture chamber, yet he can still maintain such a cautious habit? The three of them finished eating and headed outside.